Yeah.
Can everybody take their seats, please? We have a long agenda this evening. A lot of people here who are waiting to hear different things. Standing room only. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the October 9, 2018 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission of the Town of Fairfield. Forgive me for sounding a little under the weather. I'm feeling fine, but my throat is a little weird. First item is Building and Communications, the meeting minutes from September 11, 2018. I have a motion. Motion to approve by Commissioner McAleese.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Francis. Thank you. The microphones are exceptionally,
Yeah.
This is nice. Good. It's good. Thank you. Any discussion on this?
I found nothing wrong. Everything seemed in order.
Yeah. Commissioner Francis, any?
I found nothing.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are adopted unanimously. Next is 554 Tungsten Hill Road. Review of the Fairfield Historic Property Commission to designate property as historic property, advisory to the RTM.
Mr. Chairman, the Historic District Commission acts as the Historic Property Commission and is recommending that the Trinity St. Michael Church on Tungsten Hill Road be established as a historic property. Pursuant to ordinance, what this means is there are 3 established historic districts in town, but properties outside of those districts can be deemed historic by this commission, or by the Historic District Commission, and ultimately the RTM. And if approved as a historic property, then they would be regulated by the Historic District Commission as if they were in a historic district, even though they're outside the boundaries of the historic district. So they've provided a report that outlines the merits of why they think it ought to be deemed a historic property. One other thing that should be mentioned is the local ordinance does require that the property owner be in favor of the designation. That's part of the ordinance that ultimately the RTM rules on, so they can't do it outside of, without permission of the property. So a report is required to be filed with this commission. In the absence of you reporting to the RTM within 65 days, it's deemed to be a favorable response. It's an advisory opinion. It doesn't trigger other than a majority vote. They're just seeking your opinion as to whether or not, if you have one, as to the Historic Commission's application to designate this church property as historic.
Yep. Very good. Under our regulations, is there a particular standard that we're supposed to?
There is not. It's just part of the town ordinance and the state statutes that require for a historic district to be established. It has to be a report filed with you for a recommendation, but ultimately it's up to the RTM as to whether or not this gets established.
Very good. Thank you. Can I have a motion?
I move that we agree with the Historic Commission's recommendation.
Okay. So, if I may, it would be a motion to recommend to the RTM that the parcel be designated historic. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. May I have a second? So moved by Commissioner Corcoran and seconded by Commissioner McAleese. Okay. Commissioner Corcoran, any comments?
Well, my comment is that we have a commission whose job it is to handle this kind of thing. I looked through what they sent us. I found nothing controversial about it. I think that we should respect their opinion.
Mr. McAleese?
I concur. Nothing to add to that.
Okay. Anyone else? I agree with the motion. It is a significant church, significant parcel of property. The owner seeks the designation, established in 1921. I won't rehash the information that's contained in the report, but this is significant, and I agree with the motion as well. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Seconded by Commissioner McAleese. Moved by Commissioner Corcoran, seconded by Commissioner McAleese. To recommend to the RTM that the property be designated as historic parcel. Okay. Any opposed? Abstentions? So the motion passes unanimously. Next is 1073 North Benson Road, request of Fairfield University for 100% release of a $130,380 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in the AA zone.
Mr. Chairman, this was with respect to the parking garage that was approved by this commission in February of last year. There's a report in your packet from the engineering department saying that they've inspected the site and are recommending 100% release of the bond.
Thank you. Nope, I have it, thank you. Yep. I confirm the email in our packet. Ms. Poole.
I'll make a motion to release the bond.
Motion to release by Commissioner McAleese,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Corcoran. Any comments?
Just the engineering department inspected it, they approved of the release, and we'll go by their analysis.
I agree.
Anyone else have any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Bonds released in its entirety. Next item is 479 Westway Road, request of Westway Road LLC for a 50% release of a $180,088 bond pertaining to special permit improvements in the Design Residential District.
This was a 16-unit condominium development. The approval dates back to 2006. The vast majority of the work is done. They will likely be seeking the balance of the 50%, but you do have a report in your packet from the engineering department saying at least 50% of the bonded work is completed and are recommending that 50% release.
Very good, thank you.
I move that we approve the request.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Corcoran,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner McAleese. You're my wingmen tonight. Thank you, guys. I confirm we have the comments from Laura Pooley in the file. Any other comments?
No, Laura Cooley's recommendation is what I base my motion on.
Okay.
I just have one comment, question. Would it hurt to clarify, just that we're not talking about the 180? I know it says 50% release, but just that we're talking about $90,044.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the confirmation. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The bond is released in half for $90,044. Next item are new applications to recommend a public hearing. 555 Turney Road, special exception and coastal site plan application of the town of Fairfield for a new marina concession and fuel dock building in the A zone.
Presently, at the town's marina, there is a kind of a temporary building that's been there for quite some time. They're looking to replace it with a more permanent structure. It is a special exception application. It does require a public hearing, which will be scheduled for a subsequent meeting.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve, to recommend the public hearing.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner McAleese,
Second.
second by Commissioner Noonan. Thank you. Hearing is required.
It is.
Very good. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Moved to public hearing unanimously. Next item is old business, 65 Station Street, special permit application of SF Station Street LLC pertaining to a new commercial building in the Neighborhood Design District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this proposal seeks approval to construct a 3,440 square foot office building on a site within the Neighborhood Design Business District. This property is already improved with 2 existing buildings occupied as offices. The issues raised during the public hearing center around 3 issues: the use of the building, traffic and parking, and issues relative to the resident zone boundary. The permit proposal is for the construction of an office building. Typically, considerations for such an application do not involve the prospective tenant. Opponents of the proposal raise the issue that an existing tenant, who is purportedly the prospective occupant of the new building, is not a permitted use in the zone. Office uses in the neighborhood design district pursuant to section 12.5.2 are, quote, business and professional offices which primarily provide services to customers and clients on the premises. Attorney Green submitted a 2010 zoning compliance application for the property for occupancy for Sterling Ruger. The application made reference to a ZBA variance that was granted in 2010. At that time, the proposed use was not an office that primarily served customers and clients on the premises. Therefore, a variance was sought for relief of that requirement and was approved. We did review that ZBA file, and it indicates that there were no conditions of approval, nor in my opinion could there be, that tied that variance to occupancy by a particular tenant. So Mr. Green argued on behalf of opponents that the same variance would be necessary for the prospective tenant to occupy the new building. Notwithstanding the ZBA approval, the applicant argues that the business is indeed one that provides services to customers and clients on the premises, and therefore, in their view, a permitted use. There was testimony regarding parking and traffic that the site currently generates, particularly during the weekly brokers meeting at the existing real estate office. The applicant's traffic report indicates the proposal will increase peak hour traffic by 4 vehicles. While the required number of spaces meets our regulations, the report acknowledges that there is a deficiency during the weekly meeting that can be cured by moving the meeting time to an earlier time of the day, and the applicant has agreed to move that meeting time. Lastly, there are issues relative to the residential zone boundary that bisects the property and borders the westerly property line. The issue was raised relative to what the proper setback should be from the westerly property line adjoining Southport Congregational Church. This line is a sideline for the church. Therefore, the proposed setback of 10 feet, in our view, is correct. We disagree that the setback should hold the adjacent rear yard A-zone setback of 30 feet. So, in our opinion, the proposal is in compliance with that standard. The fire chief has opined that a turnaround is required to allow emergency vehicles to be able to make a 3-point turn to exit the site. And the applicant has provided a sketch as to how that can be accomplished using reinforced turf material under the lawn for emergency use only. The question was raised as to whether or not such a turnaround would constitute an impermissible intrusion into the residentially zoned portion of the site. The residential regulations in section 5.2.1 discuss access required for residential properties. That section provides that no walk or driveway shall be permitted giving access to any business or industrial use or district. Clearly, a driveway from a residential property to commercial property would not be permitted. The question for the commission is to whether or not an emergency turnaround within the residence zone gives access to a business use or district under the language of that section. The considerations for special permit are found in section 25.7.7. Is the development shown on the site and architectural plans of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values in the neighborhood, to preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and to avoid undue traffic congestion. That is all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion? Yes, Commissioner Noonan?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to deny the application.
Okay. Motion to deny by Commissioner Noonan.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner McAleese. Commissioner Noonan, you want to start things off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My denial is primarily centered on the permitted use discussion. The application came forward under 12.5.2, offices primarily to provide services to customers and clients on premises. I don't believe that ends the discussion, though, as to just the fact that it's going to be an office use. The preamble to the neighborhood design district is 12.5 and discusses that uses shall be limited to those that primarily serve local neighborhood and are consistent with the purpose for which district was designed. the applicant gave the impression that the 12.5.2 language supersedes the preamble. That's against all the statutory construction that I know of as far as reading provisions so that the provisions have meaning, to read them in conjunction. You can't read one provision so that it renders another provision meaningless or moot. So having said that, I believe you have to read 12.5, the preamble, with 12.5.2. The fact that you have an office building that may provide services to customers on premises does not end the discussion. You have to delve deeper to see if it meets the preamble, as I just outlined. Here we have what I understand to be an international shipping company, and I just don't see how that serves the local neighborhood, whether it be Southport, Fairfield County. As the applicant's attorney rightly said, the local should not be limited to necessarily Southport, even Fairfield. It should be even broader out, may even be broader out. But even considering Fairfield County, I don't know how that an international shipping company meets the preamble within 12.5. One of the good evidence would be, I think, what do the neighbors think about the business itself? And the neighbors seemed, well, I don't want to say universally, but predominantly against the application, bringing up at least the argument that I am putting forth, that this is not a permitted use within the neighborhood design district. I welcome to hear any other comments about parking and traffic, even the turnaround itself, but I primarily focus my denial on this not being a permitted use as I outlined.
Thank you, Commissioner Noonan. Commissioner Michaelis?
I agree with Tom's thorough analysis of the issue, and would add, I think, the opening sentence for that section, 12.5. The purpose of this district is to provide local neighborhoods with needed and desirable convenience, goods, and services in a manner not detrimental to the surrounding residential area. I mean, it's a tough decision, because we've heard wonderful things about this business, and they do seem to be a good neighbor to some of the, like to the restaurant. Apparently they provide a lot of business to the restaurant and to the hotel, and I get that, but in this case, I'm thinking I'm like one of the homeowners, and I've got to deal with another business coming in that, to me, doesn't seem to fit the intent of this this regulation, so I can't really add anything.
Thank you. Commissioner Corcoran?
It's hard for me to think of a building that might look better here. But I want to consider this based on, not on some hypothetical building, but on this building. I think it meets the design standards. But I want to just bring up again what Mr. Wendt mentioned, is that these regulations apply to buildings and not to tenants. And I'm wondering if there were a different tenant, would we approve this? I mean, there may be a different tenant. This wording, it talks about the business, and I'm wondering if we really are in the business of deciding which businesses can meet this definition. I mean, there are local people who are working in this business.
Sure. I think, I mean, if it's an open question for discussion, you know, I think I can address that. So there are two components to it, right? One is the building, and whether it meets our regulations in terms of design and setbacks and architecture and the practicality of parking and the like. And then there's the compliance aspect to it, which is in the nature of the use, and that's what Commissioner Noonan is addressing, you know, in that respect. You know, it's significant that way back when Sturm Ruger thought it necessary, which it did, to get a variance for its use as a gun manufacturer. I think we'd all agree that doesn't fit squarely within the context of the regulation. But that variance runs with the land. So it's a combination of both the use and as well as the, the legal issues relating to the land. So the tenants of the existing building have been operating under this variance without the need to go through the compliance process. And so, as a foundational matter, I personally disagree that because this tenant is in the first building, that they would therefore be suitable as a tenant for the second building. And that was one of the applicant's arguments. That having been said, I do think it's appropriate that we look at the tenant in the way that Commissioner Noonan and Commissioner McAleese have looked at that. When Mr. Fallon first brought the applicant up to answer some questions about the business, he was seeking to lay a foundation for this purpose. Unfortunately, the applicant started to talk about their international shipping business and about how they broker space on vessels for intercontinental voyages, and that they have a wonderful impact. And I'm not disputing any of this. I think it's wonderful, and I think that it's a fantastic business. But their beneficial impact upon the community was to have their meetings at the Delamar and have dinners at Martel, and that when they brought in 10 or 20 or 30 clients a couple of times a year, that they would take their clients out to support the local economy and the like. And don't get me wrong, that's all really, really, really important. But that's kind of the opposite of what the regulations are seeking to inspire in connection with local businesses serving the local community. So, for those reasons, I support the analysis there, and I hope that answers your question about the difference between the compliance and sort of the issues that relate to the construction of the building. I have other comments that I want to make, but hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm done for now.
Okay. Commissioner Francis, I think, was next.
Yeah, I feel pretty much that same way. The building, the owner has a right to construct a building. I feel, however, the setback issue has not been fully resolved and should be researched by an independent engineer as to whether it is the front or the side setback. And I'm concerned about having an LEP test the land before construction due to unknown prior uses, particularly the one we do know, Sturm Ruger. And I also feel that every tenant, according to 12.2.2, it sounds to me like every tenant in a neighborhood design business has to get zoning permission, and perhaps no interior alterations or construction was required when this tenant moved into the existing building, and so he never got it. I would fail to believe that an international marine brokerage belongs in a neighborhood design business district.
Okay. Commissioner Levy.
Thank you. I'm very concerned about the overly restrictive approach that's been advocated with respect to this application. I've been practicing law in the town of Fairfield for 41 years. 41 years ago, my clients often came to my office and I met with them. Today, if I see one client a day, it's a lot. But the services I provide, and it depends how you parse this language, it's to provide services to customers and clients on the premises. And my services, which are now provided through my computer and through the internet and through the phone, are provided on the premises. Another important factor is the applicant could have come in here and not named the tenant. There's nothing that requires in our regulations that a prospective tenant be listed. If he had come in and said, I want to put up this building, it's an office use, it provides for offices, and the services would be provided in those offices, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And in terms of whether or not it serves the neighborhood, I mean, the days of Marcus Welby having a practice in the office that serves the neighborhood are long gone, right? When you talk about serving the neighborhood, you're providing services, economic services. You're providing a place where people can work. You're providing a place, an office building which abuts a railroad station on a property that has a long history of commercial use, where people will come to work, people will take the train, come to work, people will go out to lunch in the community, they will go to the retail stores which abut this property. I think that serves the neighborhood. I wouldn't limit it to whether or not it's another real estate agent. That would certainly qualify, but I think the neighbors would be far more against the current tenant, Philippone, taking over and putting another 16 agents in here. That's my concern about this overly restrictive approach.
So I think under that analysis, Sturm Ruger would not have had to seek a variance, because they would provide the services on the premises as well.
Perhaps.
And I do take your point about them being, coming in with an application for a building and not having to name a tenant. They could have done it in 2 stages, and so that's a fair point. So I'd like to say to the applicant, what you've done on the site is really remarkable. And I think most of you know I live in Southport. It's a beautiful building, and he's been a fantastic steward of the property to bring that, into a use in the 21st century, with remarkable design and the like. But the use has been continued under this variance, where there hasn't been a need to seek a compliance application. So that issue is not decided. That's unsettled, right? We haven't made a decision historically, right? We haven't passed on that aspect of it to date. Notwithstanding that, though, there is a limit. Not every parcel needs to be developed to the fullest capacity that it can possibly be technically developed, even under the exactitudes of our regulations. And in certain circumstances, this being one of them, even though a proposal might comply with the specific requirements of the zoning regulations, there are other considerations which we have to take into account in order to pass judgment on, whether the proposal is suitable for the neighborhood. I disagree with the setback issue. I think that is in my own personal analysis a dead issue. I think the setbacks comply. However, I don't think that the turnaround complies. Section 5.2.1 provides that there shall be no access provided over a residential property to the commercial property. The applicant acknowledged that they couldn't put in parking spaces to comply with the regulations so as to permit access to the property. I find that having a turnaround constructed on the residential area is an encroachment on an unpermitted encroachment on the residential zone, and on that basis would deny the application. I also believe that the traffic and the parking issues that were presented by the opposition are real, and on that basis would also deny the application. this goes to my point of not every parcel need or should be developed to the absolute limits of what might be otherwise allowable in the strict construct of our regulations. And for this, I think that some people perhaps take issue with us and with the regulations, and I apologize for that, but that's the way it is. I think the applicant acknowledged, the traffic study acknowledged, that at certain times under the current configuration, the parking is inadequate to serve the current demands of the existing buildings and surrounding areas. At times, I believe the traffic report said that parking demands were 102% of the capacity. Now, they propose to shift a meeting, which the applicant's expert tells us will fix everything. I'm not so quick to simply jump on that bandwagon. And in light of, I don't know, however many years it is experience on this commission and dealing with applications like this and others where we don't think that there's going to be an impact on traffic and parking in town, only to turn around and find out that things weren't the way we thought they were going to be. And again, my sympathies in some respects to the applicant, because it's a beautiful building, it's a wonderful architecture, it's a great design, but I don't feel it's appropriate to further develop this parcel in the way that has been proposed by this applicant to the extent that it has been proposed here. One, the use I don't think is permitted. Two, the turnaround encroaches on the residential zone. And three, the traffic and parking issues that would be created by the parcel I think are impermissible. And for those reasons, I agree with my colleagues and I would vote to deny it. Yeah. Commissioner Levy?
Yes. In terms of the development of the property, or that every property need not be fully developed, the initial application, which was in excess of 5,000 square feet, had that not been withdrawn, I would have certainly been against that proposal, because I felt that was too large and too big in scale for this property. But I think we all agree that this is a beautiful building. The developer has reduced it to, basically 2 floors. They rotated it on the property so as to avoid staring at a large blank facade. And so I think it is an appropriate development, particularly in this parcel, which, is between a train station, a church, and a residence. In terms of the emergency turnaround, that's at the request of the fire department. I don't think an emergency turnaround could be considered a means of access or ingress and egress. It is not designed to be a driveway. It's there for an emergency use and that use only. So based upon those factors, I would approve this application. In terms of the traffic, I've seen many pictures with lots of cars parked there along in legal spots. I'm also quite, I'm familiar with the area. And there's many times when I go riding by on my bike and there's nobody there. And based on the traffic study, there is 1 hour which is critical. And if this matter were to be approved, I would want a condition that meeting be rescheduled so as to avoid that period. So based upon that, I would approve the application.
I would like to make it clear that, and just in brief rebuttal to what you're saying, my comments are relative to this application that came before us for judgment. And I do not telegraph by my comments how I might view a different application, just so that everybody is aware of that in keeping
And mine
with your comments.
are also strictly limited to this application.
All of ours are.
Yep, well, I felt the need to articulate
Fair
that
enough.
expressly. Anyone else? Okay. Commissioner Noonan?
Just in response to my colleagues, I think if the applicant just came forth with the building without what the actual tenant was going to be, I think it would be incumbent upon us to actually ask what the use was going to be. We had something somewhat similar, I forget the name, it was a giant step.
Giant steps?
We denied that because we did not know what the tenants were gonna be, and the regulations required it to be nonprofit
Ah.
and charitable
Ah.
of sorts.
Yeah, so that was, that's correct. The circumstances of that application were that the use of the building had to meet certain criteria, and we inquired of what that was to be.
They didn't know at the time, which was
That's right.
fine, because they just hadn't gotten that far, and we'd said, listen, we need, our regulations require the use to be a certain thing. We are not gonna give up that right, power, authority, whatever it is, to give like a blank check as to what goes in there. And that was a proper use of our authority, considering that the regulations required the use to be something specific. The same thing goes here. I don't know how, if you ignore the use, either taking Commissioner Levy's approach or Commissioner Corcoran's approach, Commissioner Levy's being very broad, Commissioner Corcoran focusing on the building only, I don't know how I think you essentially ignore 12.5, the preamble, and I just don't know, I don't believe that's proper. That has to be given its due meaning. I accept the chairman's findings on the turnaround, though. That's a close call. I see it how, I analogize it to a parking spot. Parking spot couldn't be there. This is, I would say, more closely related to a parking spot, and that this could go towards the access of the building. It may
Exactly.
not be going through the residential, but it is part of the residential, whether it be emergency or not. So those are my final comments.
Very good. Commissioner Corcoran.
So just to follow up on my comments, you have convinced me on the use issue, and that will determine my vote. However, on the parking, I don't consider that an issue. I think the problems are minor, at least as presented to us in the traffic study. And secondly, I don't think the turnaround rises to the level of being access, so I don't think that's a problem.
All right. So, any other comments? Any other comments? No? Okay. All right, so the motion on the table is to deny.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, there seems to be some disagreement as to what it's clearly a motion to deny.
Yeah.
I've got clearly you don't consider the use to be permitted. There's some disagreement as to whether the turnaround and parking are also findings that the commission is making in the motion. So I think we need to clarify that's from the motion maker's point of view, which of those three items are included in the vote.
So, Commissioner Noonan, it is your motion to amend if you so choose. You have three bases.
I will amend the motion to deny pursuant to the use and the turnaround. We didn't really talk, I mean, there was some comment on traffic, two people. I mean, if that needs to go in,
You can move,
My
and then,
thought-
I don't know if there can
Well,
be another.
I'll move to amend to those two denials only. My thought with the traffic and parking was, the traffic and the parking issue, at least the parking seemed to be more of a prevalent issue than the traffic. But the parking seemed to be more an issue from the from other uses, nearby uses, the real estate, office, and the restaurant. I have having a tough time finding the applicant being held accountable for that. The question is, will their impact inappropriately or affect traffic too much, so to speak?
Sure. So since we're still in executive session, right, we'll still talk about this. Does anybody mind if I respond to that? So, the applicant has a parcel on which there is an existing building and who now seeks to add a second building and needs to reconcile the adequacy of parking for the entirety of the parcel with all of the buildings and uses thereon. And with respect to, that's with respect to the current real estate tenant and use that's there now, right? And with respect to the restaurant, we heard that the applicant has a specific agreement with the restaurant to utilize the parking lot on the subject parcel for overflow parking, right? There's not even enough parking in the train station to support the restaurant use that exists today. I know, and I'm speaking now from specific personal observation and use. There is not sufficient parking in the train station and surrounding streets to support the restaurant's regular activities. Okay? I can't stress that enough.
That's, yeah.
All right?
Given.
Now, as a result of that, they've reached an agreement with the applicant to use the parking lot for overflow when at different times. All right? The applicant here comes in with all that baggage. All right? They've got to now reconcile the use of the lot for the restaurant, the use of the lot for the real estate agency, and the use of the parking lot now for the new proposed use. You can't divorce all of those things. The traffic report cited that at various points of demand that were studied, demand on the parking lot exceeds 102% of the parking lot. All right? You know, those pieces of the puzzle counsel my opinion that the parking as proposed, in addition to the proposed use, the parking is insufficient and unworkable and will cause undue traffic and parking issues on the surrounding areas. That's my analysis in a nutshell.
I'm open to others. I mean, just
Anyone else have an opinion on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Corcoran.
I mean, it's obviously a densely trafficked area and parking area, but I thought our report was that there was 102% of capacity at 10 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the morning
Yep.
and at one time. And so it doesn't sound like a universal.
It varies. No, clearly it varies. Right? Okay, because there is opportunity in that parking lot for patrons of the restaurant to park when the real estate agency is not in business or open for business. But at that time, that parking lot is so overflowed that people are parking illegally on the other parts of Station Street and in other areas of the train station parking lot. There aren't enough parking spaces there to support those uses. And to my mind, you can't just walk away from that. You can't ignore that.
But those uses are at a different time of day from the proposed.
They are. My point is that we have evidence of overflow and insufficient parking during the day and during the evenings. I mean, it vacillates, that's true. It's never going to be the same, you know, at every portion of each day, and I'm sure it's different on Mondays and Tuesdays than it is on Thursdays and Fridays, right? The point being that I don't think this area merits an additional development of another building to this size with this floor area for this purpose as proposed by this applicant right now. It's a sum of the parts kind of thing.
So when we come back to the motion, though, are we going to?
Well, that's up right now. It's in the hands of Commissioner Noonan as the owner of the motion.
Where are we? Do you have something, like, where are we now with the?
right
Well,
now.
the motion was originally made on the basis of it not being a permitted use. Two other issues were raised during the discussion
But nothing amended.
as to potential additional findings to support a denial. One being the turnaround projecting into the residential district, the other being the impact of traffic and parking.
Right.
So we're just
Is that-
clarifying from the
Yeah.
original
Yeah.
motion whether those other two items are going to be
Yeah.
added to the motion or not.
I mean, I mean, as far as question of staff, I mean, in staff's opinion, should we be looking at as the chairman said, the entire package, so to speak, of the area, or just the application as far as its impact, if you can give one? If you can't,
Well,
or answer.
I'll answer that. That's not a question for Mr. Wendt. I'll answer that. We should provide the office with sufficient guidance on the bases for our denial so that they can articulate that for the record. How we choose to do that is our business. I think we have one motion here. I don't think we can take different votes on different,
Right.
right? Okay, we have one motion here.
So I
No, I was just,
Yes, Commissioner
Right.
Corr.
So, then I think the motion should be very general. It should just be up or down.
No, we have to provide the staff with a basis for denial, the basis for denial.
But we've created a record here in our discussion, because not everyone agrees on all of the bases.
Well, no, that's a question for you, whether the
Well, I think
the
like any
individual
other, I think
elements need to be fully, unanimous or not.
Again, I'm simply, you need to have a collective statement as to what the reasons for the motion are. The motion, as was articulated, was limited to the use not being a permitted use, as was originally made.
Yeah.
There were suggestions to add on to that for other reasons that have been articulated. So,
Right.
as it stands now, the motion is to deny solely on the basis of it not being a permitted use.
Okay. I would ask that friendly amendment, that the motion be revised to include the turnaround as well as undue traffic and parking and traffic.
well, and that's why I was asking staff if they can give an opinion about whether, as far as analyzing the traffic and the parking, do I look towards this application only or the parcel itself?
I mistook your question
Okay,
then.
that's what I was,
So he's asking you about my assessment of the parcel as a whole.
Well, again, the standard of 25.7.7 is whether or not you think the development on the site and architectural plans would result in, would avoid undue traffic congestion. Now, that's, it's a judgment call on your part whether that extends to the other extenuating circumstances of the neighborhood or the direct impact of this application.
Yep.
so I would amend my motion to denial for two reasons, the permitted use and the turnaround. I feel at this point it almost to sidestep the traffic issue at this point, considering that there are two issues that are more predominant, more obvious in my mind. And maybe also as we said earlier, that our comments are directed towards this application. Should a future application come forward, I would like to give it its due course without maybe forecasting what we would
Okay.
think as far as traffic and parking.
Fair enough. So motion's been amended by Commissioner Noonan to deny on the basis of 5.2.1 as well as the permitted use.
Correct.
Okay? And so I think it was, who was the seconder on that? Commissioner McAleese?
Yes, it was Commissioner Mackey.
Was 5.2.1 the access?
5.2.1 is the turnaround.
Yes.
Encroaching on the residential zone.
Okay. I agree
Okay,
with
so
that.
that's the one.
Right.
And then the second basis is not a permitted use.
Right.
Okay, so
I
do you
agree.
accept that amendment?
I do accept it.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Corcoran, point of inquiry?
So that puts me in a position of agreeing with part of the motion and not agreeing with another part of the motion.
Yep, and you're going to have to make a decision as to whether you want to vote in favor or not. If the motion fails, this is a motion to deny, and that means the item remains on our agenda, which means that we debate until we have another motion, whether to deny or to approve, until the matter is resolved. Okay? Commissioner Levy?
Just to clarify, the current motion, as I understand it, would be to deny based upon just those two factors,
Correct.
and those would be the two that have been articulated.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, that's correct. Okay. Any other questions on procedure? Okay. Motion is to deny for the two bases as stated. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed, Commissioner Levy. Any abstentions? So, the motion to deny carries 6-1. Next item on our agenda, 54 Sasco Hill Road, special permit application and coastal site plan application of Sasco 54 LLC pertaining to a mixed-use commercial and residential building in the Design Commercial District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this application seeks a special permit and coastal site plan approval for a mixed-use commercial and residential building. The proposed building will be on a similar footprint as the existing one-story building that's currently on the site. The lower level has 2 parking spaces and an open storage area for an access lobby to the building. The second floor is a proposed office space, while the third floor is a single apartment. This site has been the subject of 2 previous applications to this commission. An application for a similar mixed-use building was heard at public hearing in January of 2014. There was a fair amount of opposition, mainly centered around the architectural style of that building. That application was withdrawn prior to the commission making a decision. A second application was made by a different applicant to change the zone from residence to Residence A for the purpose of constructing a single-family dwelling. The zone change proposal was denied by the commission in January of 2016. This coastal site plan was referred to the Connecticut DEP, and via email that you have in your packet, they reported no objections to the proposal. New concrete curb, sidewalk, and driveway apron are proposed along the street frontage. However, the driveway width must be shown at 24 feet. If the commission finds favorable, this should be considered as a condition of approval. The consideration for special permits are found in 27.7.7, as you just heard. For the previous application, is the development shown on the site and architectural plans of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood to accomplish a transition of character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values in the neighborhood, to preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and avoid undue traffic congestion. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So that we can have a motion at the outset which incorporates all of the recommended conditions of approval, can we just state those?
The only, aside from standard for bonding, would be the driveway width at the street needs to be shown at 24 feet.
I seem to recall there being the macaroni elbow easement issue.
The next door neighbor, the residential neighbor, purports to have access to his property beyond what is identified in the formal easement. The applicant has stated that they will continue to honor that, although it's not shown. Whether or not you want that shown on the site plan is a potential, they said that they would honor their historic access even if it exceeds the boundary of the current
Right.
easement.
And that's what I'm referring to. Maybe that's then a subject that needs to be discussed a little bit further in executive session. Okay. Nothing more from the applicant then with respect to screening or anything like that. All right, very good. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve for discussion purposes?
With the condition as stated?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan with condition for the 24-foot driveway.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Levy. Thanks. Commissioner Noonan?
Yeah, I guess we're kind of ferreting out what this, as you eloquently put it, macaroni easement was. I have it in my notes, and it's more focused on the other application than this one. So I need to, if we need to go through this a little bit, I just don't have my recollection of it.
Okay. So, Commissioner Levy, do you have comments?
Yeah. I would move to, I would approve this application with the conditions. Again, I find it to be an attractive building. It's a vast improvement over what previously has been submitted. And in terms of the driveway condition, the applicant has agreed to pave and provide access to that macaroni parking area, as we call it. So I think that would appropriately resolve the neighbor's primary concern.
Commissioner Corcoran.
So we have this rendering, this photograph, and it doesn't show the present parking that the neighbor has. In fact, I think there's a tree in the way. I mean, I'm a little concerned that this was presented to us and it's not what they're proposing.
Right.
And I'm not really sure what it is they're proposing. I noticed you started to draw the piece on it, and I'm not sure what it is either.
Commissioner Levy.
It was fairly clear to me, similar to with a prescriptive easement, that it would just be a question of paving up to the border there.
Right. So I think, forgive me if I'm jumping in here on anybody else, but to Commissioner Corcoran's point, one of the requirements of the application process is to provide us with plans and also renderings. And the renderings are supposed to accurately portray what the applicant proposes to build and develop, right? And we've had this issue before where the renderings embellish a little on the landscaping or show us trees that are, 20 years mature when they're going to be planted as saplings and, things like that. But at the end of the day, if there's a tree in this spot here where they're proposing to give the neighbor an easement, I think that might be, problematic.
I could
Yeah?
address it. If you have the site plan in front of you, I think that the rendering is primarily for the appearance and scale of the building itself. The site plan shows the boundary of the existing pavement as a dashed line, and you can see that the pavement extends to the garage.
Which sheet are you on?
The one you're on, yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, he's talking about
The page after the...
you don't have the
I
comment.
have sheet 2 of 4. I got the whole thing. Where are we?
Sheet 1 of 4.
Sheet one.
Sheet 1?
This dash line is what he's talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
So
Thank
you can see the kind of dashed line that extends into the neighbor's property has there's a garage and there's a curve around. That curves around the tree that's in that rendering. And what the rendering doesn't show is that other tail of pavement.
The trees on the neighbor's.
And parking. Yeah. So that tree
The tree's on the neighbor's property.
Can you, that tree is here?
No,
Yeah.
he's over here.
It's shown on the planting. That tree that's in the photo
Right here?
is on the neighbor's property. So I think what their intent is the concern raised is, hey, my easement is shown as this elbow macaroni, but I also have access to this extended pavement, which the applicant said that they would continue to permit.
Yeah, meaning that in order to get to this, he's got to drive across this part of the driveway here. Okay. So how do we, does everybody understand where we are, what we're doing? Okay.
This one?
Yeah, so there's the tree is here in the little cutout, right? Here's the neighbor. In order to get to this additional parking space here, historically, the neighbor has driven further up the driveway and come in here. So they're actually using this part of the driveway in addition to just the macaroni strip,
Right.
okay, historically,
Yes.
right? Because otherwise, in order to get to that little parking space, he'd have to cut the tree down
Well,
without going on the driveway.
correct, without continuing to have the
Right.
access he presently has.
Right, okay? And that's his concern.
Right, and the
So-
applicant agrees that they will continue to have that access.
Right.
And if you think that needs to be articulated in a condition, I think you can do that.
Right, so they've got the existing easement, and then I guess the condition of approval would be that the abutting neighbor be permitted to use the driveway for access and egress from their property.
You want to say that, or from the existing parking spot? Because you don't want to give them a right to park anywhere.
Yes, maybe he should continue to have the same access he has now to his existing.
Parking space.
Cross over the
Yeah.
applicant's site.
Okay, all right.
So does that last forever?
Well, yeah, it's gonna run with the,
It runs with the
with the
land.
land. Yeah.
So there should be documentation of what the present condition is.
Well, the present condition is documented in, I believe, in the land records as the easement is the macaroni strip. And he's acquired, Commissioner Levy, prescriptive easement rights?
Perhaps, if it's been 15 years.
Yeah. I think it has been 15 years.
Mhm.
But I don't know that. We don't have that fact in the
Sorry, what was the
record.
question?
For this, so the neighbor here has been, using, this part of the driveway here
Yes.
for some number of years. We don't know if it's 5, 10, it's more than 5, 10, 15, 20
Yes.
years, whatever. So the easement which presently exists is shown here in the macaroni, right? So has he developed like prescriptive easement rights over the, for access, ingress and egress over this portion here?
I thought prescriptive easements was, you have to get a chance to go to your parcel of land, which he has.
Right.
He's asking for either a secondary or more convenience. So I'm not sure, I mean, it'd be more of like almost adverse, well, not adverse possession, but.
And the applicant is offering to grant
They've
that.
all-
Yeah, so it's not a dispute.
Mr. Chairman, maybe if I can, I don't think we need to decide if he's got a license, an easement, or what.
Right.
The condition is that he will permit the abutting owner to traverse the driveway,
Right.
to continue to traverse the driveway to access the parking
Fair enough.
spot.
All right. You're satisfied with that, Mr. Webb?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Otherwise, I thought the building looks great. No, we've been, and again, I'm probably jumping in on people here, but, we've been around the block, a number of times, no pun intended, with this parcel, and, I appreciate the applicants, going through that process, and, believe that we have a really, a nice renovation here, as was, confirmed by the support that we heard for the proposal.
My only concern is if we make that a condition of approval that he gets not just the easements, but we make a condition that he gets,
Additional access.
additional access as he normally have,
Mhm.
as runs with the land, are we unnecessarily or improperly burdening the applicant's land? I mean, I throw that out there because that's my initial
Well,
reaction.
I would say that you wouldn't be in a position to make that condition without the acquiescence of the applicant.
Which they've given.
you have.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
right,
that's fair,
right,
that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
I remember them saying they would allow it, I remember them saying they would agree to the condition of approval, but, okay.
No, I remember that. That's why I asked about that as a further condition of approval, because it was expressly acknowledged by the applicant. Otherwise, all of the application meets with, all of our regulations.
No, I would agree with that. Does my motion need to be amended, or do we get,
It does, because you only included
Only
a
one.
condition with regard to the driveway.
I would,
So-
yeah, so I said I would move to amend my motion for the two conditions that we discussed.
Okay. Motion, Commissioner Noonan has amended his motion. That was seconded by Commissioner Levy.
I concur.
Approved? Okay, very good, thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Comments, questions? Okay. The motion is to approve with two conditions as stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. All right. Sorry. Next item. 26 Reef, that's compliances. 26 Reef Road, compliance application of Al DeGuido for a seasonal waffle shack in the Center Design District.
Briefly, you've got a detailed packet here about a temporary seasonal waffle shack for Saugatuck Suites. They're proposing it kind of in the opposite season of outdoor seating, which would be October through April. They're proposing that it would be removed on April 1. I won't go into any more detail unless you have any questions, but you might want to consider, since it's akin to an outdoor use, we have done one-year recertifications for all our outdoor dining applications. If you feel fit to support this application, give it a one-year certification on the condition that it be removed on April 1st in accordance with the proposal.
Yeah, thanks. So what are we going to add this to the list of outdoor dining, and we'll have
Well, they already have
flip-flop?
seasonal, they already
Yeah,
have
right,
kind of seasonal
right.
outdoor dining. This is kind of the flip to that. Yeah.
Right, so we'll approve prospectively the outdoor dining for the summer and the fall, and then the waffle shacks, however many of them they may populate, for the winter.
Again, you have in your packet the actual structure that they're proposing to be placed there. We'll have to have sign off, of course, from the Health Department and Fire Marshal as well. which
Right,
they've already
all right, let's get a motion for discussion, because this one is a little bit out of the usual.
I move that we approve for discussion purposes.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Corcoran,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Corcoran?
I have a couple questions. Is there a setback issue?
The requirement is to be 10 feet back from the street, which we believe, if, we didn't have them put this shack on the survey, but there's room there to achieve the 10-foot setback.
What about from the sideline?
Side yard can be 0.
You're in the commercial business
Right.
district, right?
And the second one, just, is it heated?
No.
The question was
How
about
are they
heat.
going to use it? You wear gloves and a coat?
Yeah, they're gonna run a temporary electric service to the machinery, but there's not gonna be, perhaps there may be a space heater inside the thing, but it's not a permanent,
So they're going to run an electric line from the house?
yes.
So, I find this to be analogous with the outdoor dining. I don't see a particular problem with it.
Okay. Commissioner Levy?
Well, it'll be like going to Mount Snow, but in Fairfield.
Yeah.
I'd approve.
Well, so is it considered then a movable structure?
It is.
Here's a
Yeah.
picture of it.
So I see the picture,
Yeah, they're proposing to remove it from the property in April.
right, which is
I would
why,
recommend that to be a condition if you were gonna move down this.
right. Well, they need the space anyway for the kids eating the ice cream. So it's an inventive use of space which otherwise is not being used over the winter for an ice cream shop, which we of course want to support in our town. Ice cream seems to be a fixture of Fairfield, and we should support that.
I have a question. Why do we limit the restaurants to a certain date when they have to stop serving outside?
Well, Mr. Wendt, do you want to provide a historical context to outdoor dining seasonally adjusted?
It's been an evolution. It's pretty much self-regulated in terms of the weather. But the original season used to end in October 1, and the commission over the years has extended that to the end of October, being kind of the most, obviously technology is changing in the way people can heat outdoor spaces. We've seen some applications for enclosures of patio. I think the commission is trying to make it a seasonal use and then it not become a permanently enclosed
Right.
space.
Right. And also to get the clutter off the sidewalks when they're not being used.
Correct, and then you've got snow removal, and you've got, weather conditions that impact that outdoor space as well. So the issues, as I see it, and I guess we probably don't want to get into a debate over outdoor seasonal outdoor dining at this point, but, the structures that have started to build up around those features have become more and more permanent and enclosed and don't exactly always comply with our other, regulations relating to setback and architectural stuff like that. Anyway. All right, so it's a movable shack and otherwise complies with setbacks and all the other regulations. So the recommended condition would be that it be removed, annual recertification, and that it not have heating or.
No, it's gonna have a temporary electric service and plumbing, because there needs to be a hand sink in there for the health department, so that'll all be removed.
Oh,
when-
so just
when
the
it's
two
removed.
conditions.
So I wouldn't get into what kind of equipment they may or may not have in there, it's just removed April 1 and
Yeah.
subject to 1-year recertification.
Yeah. Now, it is, are they gonna keep outdoor seating out in front? Because the outdoor seating is,
Expires
Right.
at the end of this month.
right, yep. Okay, so this is just for the shack. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, well,
Oh, we need
they're
it.
going
We need-
indoors to eat.
We need to amend the motion, yeah. Sorry, Commissioner Francis?
Yeah, they're going indoors to eat, I think is what I read.
Well, no, there's
Or they'll walk around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're going across the street to the Village Green, they're walking around town, the skating rink, the gazebo. But Saugatuck Suites doesn't have, they have seating upstairs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, you could go inside.
You can
Yeah.
go inside.
I know, me neither. It's because we go in the summertime,
Right.
which is why they need a shack
Yep.
to sell waffles in the winter. All right, so who made the motion? Commissioner Corcoran, you accept the amendment?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Levy?
I accept.
All right, very good. Motion on the table is to approve with two stated conditions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Passed unanimously. All right, next item is 391 Meadow Street, compliance application of Attorney John Curran to establish a retail use in a portion of an existing building in the Design Commercial District and the Commerce Drive District.
Last but not least, this property fronts on Kings Highway, and it's a through lot to Meadow Street behind it. It's the home of Topar Fuel Company, which faces out on Kings Highway. Up in the back, there's a second floor that's been occupied as an office. A portion of that is proposed to be established as a retail spa use under our Commerce Drive Design District regulations. Now, the retail parking is the same as what used to be for office space, so there's no increase in parking demand for that. There are 13 parking spaces up on that level in the back, in addition to parking spaces up front, and in our view, complies with our requirements.
Okay, very good. Can I have a motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan. Second by Commissioner McAleese. Commissioner Noonan?
Permitted use meets our regulations,
Just use your mic.
Again, it's a permitted use, meets our regulations, and I see no reason to deny it.
Okay, very good. Commissioner McAleese?
Nothing to add.
I agree. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Motion is to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Compliance is approved unanimously. With that, we're going to move to our public hearing. I'm just going to take a 2-minute break to reset, and I'll call the meeting back to order. Call the meeting back to order, please. As I mentioned, we have a lengthy agenda tonight, and in addition to the public hearing items, for which there is, substantial interest, we had a number of things which required us to spend some time on in executive session. So we were just looking at the public hearing items. We have three different groups, right? One is the Fairfield University set of 3, then there's the Fairfield Beach Road, and then there are 2 on Old Post Road. And I understand that there are a substantial number of people here on Old Post Road, including those who are represented by counsel with experts and the like. If I called these items in seriatim as they're laid out on the agenda, we would not get through the first 3 before 11 o'clock, and many of you would be waiting here all night and not to get to what you were here for. And so I did speak briefly with lawyers who are here on Old Post Road. And this is a little bit out of the ordinary. Honestly, in my years, I don't think I've ever done this. But could I just have the lawyers from Old Post Road kind of stand up and so do you folks have any objection to my adjourning the 766 and 7080 Old Post Road, items 5 and 6, until the next regular meeting? No, sir. Okay, great. And yeah, well, that would be the goal here, right? You know? Yep. 23rd. Okay. Right. All right. So now I assume that you guys are representing all or substantially all of the members of the public and neighbors and such. No. Do I have, and I'm doing this for everybody's benefit, and I can't please everybody all the time, you know what I mean? If you have objection, all right, and you don't want me to do this right now, then say so, and I won't, because you have the right to do that. But I really believe that you'll be sitting here all night and walk out frustrated and possibly angry with me. I don't want to have that either. Yeah. Yep. Yes, so that's what I just mentioned. If we adjourn this, it will be first on our agenda for the next meeting. First of the public hearing. First of the public hearing. Right. Okay? So we will seek to accommodate that, absolutely. Okay? So with that having been said, I mean, is there anyone else that has a strong objection to my adjourning Old Post Road until the 23rd? All right. Wonderful. So then with the agreement of the parties, I will adjourn items 5 and 6 until the 23rd.
Thank you very much.
Okay? Thanks. And thank you guys, members of the public. Appreciate it. All right?
Fairfield
All right.
Group hasn't.
So now what I'm going to do
Has barely begun.
is I'm going to
presentation.
call, do I have to have a motion to take it out of order? Very good.
Oh, we're at Fairfield, you are. What's?
Okay. Sorry, can you just keep it down? I've got to get through the other items now, okay? Okay. So, it is. So in order to further facilitate any members of the public that are here for items other than Fairfield University, namely Fairfield Beach Road, I'm going to take that out of order, and I'm going to call that next. It should be a short item. Once we finish with Fairfield Beach Road, then I'm going to call the North Benson Road Fairfield University applications for presentation. Okay? So with that, I'm going to call public hearing 1008 Fairfield Beach Road, special exception and coastal site plan application pertaining to a new single-family dwelling with a rooftop deck in the beach district.
On the creek side.
Is anyone here on 1008 Fairfield Beach Road? Yes, sir. So this requires you to at least appear. You're the applicant, okay? So the regulations require that you at least appear and present your application so that if there are any questions of the commission, we can ask, and then any members of the public can voice any opposition or comments in response. So it is, you know, mostly procedural in some ways, but there are obviously other applications in which there is substantial public engagement. Okay? Yes, sir. So just state your name and
Hi, Matt Edel, 1008 Fairfield Beach Road. The reason I'm here is our special exception application for rooftop terrace. We've designed it to fit within all the zoning restrictions. As you can see on there, we showed dimensions, etc. I've also written a short paragraph defining the reason as to why we're requesting the special exception.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Nadell? Okay. Hearing none. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on this item? Okay. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on this item. Thank you very much, Mr. Nato.
All set.
No, right, next time.
We'll decide.
So the next items on the agenda, and I'll call them all together. Separate? First one is 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield University pertaining to proposed student townhouses in the AA zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, members of the public. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here tonight, pleased to be representing Fairfield University. As the call indicates, we make this application to construct a new dormitory in the southwest corner of our campus. Due to topography and efforts that we have made, as you will see, the facility is generally not going to be visible from surrounding properties. The one exception probably is our own house where our president lives, but we have taken care in terms of our overall design and plan to ensure that buffering. The new dormitory will be constructed in an area that is presently served as the location of structures that are utilized by the university's facilities department for trade workers, break rooms, and storage. We store mafia block, construction materials, gas tanks, and the like at that location. As part of this building program and hopefully approval, we will be constructing a new maintenance facility west of the current structures. And that new building of 7,500 square feet will be substantially smaller than the current structures. Some departments utilizing the current facility may be located elsewhere on campus. What this proposal is all about, and this commission has seen evidence of it and has been helpful in the past, is the undergraduate commitment of the university to providing on-campus housing to our undergraduates. The undergraduate student residential experience is a critical component of the value of Fairfield University's education, and the university has, as you know, been committed for a number of years to improving the quality and quantity of our housing stock. Recent investments have included the 200-bed sophomore dorm, which opened in August of this year, renovation to the existing quad dormitories, and a multi-year renovation program for the townhouses at the northeast corner of the campus. The quality of available housing is critical for the students if it is to remain competitive with our peer institutions. While we focus on growth for the university, it is not at the undergraduate level. Our goals are to expand part-time enrollment for our graduate schools, our online schools, but we do intend to maintain a stable base for our undergraduate student population. This particular proposal is for a 200-bed development that's designed to provide quality living space for the university's junior and senior students. The location was chosen carefully to provide a better distribution of housing to the four corners, if you will, of our 210-acre campus, particularly in light of the location of the new Dolan School of Business, which you were good enough to approve and is currently under construction. The townhouse units, with their own separate entries, will also represent a movement towards independent living, preparing the students for the experiences they will encounter after they graduate from the university. This proposed new dormitory will provide high-quality alternatives to off-campus housing for those students who we would encourage and hopefully prefer to remain or move back to the campus. The university also believes, as we'll emphasize further on, that these students, having them on campus on a daily basis, as opposed to having them commute from off campus and therefore make multiple trips to the campus on a daily basis, is going to have a very positive impact on local traffic. We have, over the course of the last few months, reached out to our neighbors, especially those in Winton Park. We've had significant discussions, which you will hear about tonight, to respond to concerns and considerations that they raised with regard to drainage, both drainage impacts with regard to the new proposal and existing drainage concerns with regard to the campus. And that will be laid out for you tonight as well. The details are, of course, self-evident. The property is located in the Residence AA zone. The use we propose is permitted, subject to a special exception review under Section 5.1.4D of your regulations. We did hold a code enforcement meeting on July 17th, 2018, and all recommendations and comments received at that time have been incorporated into the plans as submitted. After a rigorous review by staff, we did receive a certificate of wetlands conformance. That was 2017-18-131 from the Conservation Department. Our presentation tonight hopefully will be focused and thorough. I'm going to momentarily call on David Frasinelli, who's our Vice President for Facilities Management. He will review with you the overall site layout, the concepts that we've employed in terms of site engineering in order to respond not only to the input they received from our engineer, Walt Jobst, who's also in attendance tonight, but to deal constructively with comments that we received from our neighbors. And he'll also talk about generally matters pertaining to landscaping. Once David is finished, Bob Muscatello, who's our architect from EYP Architects, will give you a brief overview of our architectural design for the townhouses, type of materials, and the like. Lastly, you received a traffic evaluation from Michael Galanti, Frederick P. Clark and Associates. He is here tonight, and he will also summarize his findings. So at this time, I'd like to call on our Vice President for Facilities Management, David Frasinelli, to talk to you about the overall site plan, site engineering, and landscaping. David.
Thank you, John Fallon. For the record, my name is David Frasinelli. I'm Vice President for Facilities at Fairfield University. I would like to first orient you to the site and the location of the development we're here to talk about this evening. So this entirety is the Fairfield University campus. This is Round Hill Road. This is Barlow Road. This is North Benson Road. Our main entrance here off of North Benson Road with two other entrances, and of course the Barlow Road gate. The proposed development we are here discussing is in this area, as John Fallon noted. It is the area that's used for our maintenance facility, the former Dolan School of Business, with the new Dolan School of Business going in this location. The development involves townhouse units in 3 buildings for a total of 200 beds in single rooms in 3 stories of buildings. When I get into the details of parking and how we accommodated that, you will see that we're proposing an additional parking lot on this location. As Attorney Fallon noted, we did significant outreach to our neighbors and our Winton Park neighbors in particular. And what was interesting was many of our neighbors in Winton Park did not realize that much of the water on the university campus flows into Winton Park and contributes to the drainage issues within Winton Park. A little difficult to see, but the topography is, sorry. Bellarmine Hall is here, I'm sorry, and there is a significant grade down, and all of this water sheets off of this hill into this barn area, which is largely impervious surface. Impervious because we park our own construction equipment, but more significantly during the winter months when we engage outsourced snow removal contractors, all their equipment is parked there. The impervious surfaces in the barn area capture that water, put it into catch basins, and it is piped to the west, to Winton Park, to the property owned by the president, occupied by the president, but owned by the university. An important part of
Pipe there for the purposes of
Runoff.
runoff and reinstitution into the soil. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. One of what we're proposing here is, with our design with Huntington, is to capture the water from this development, particularly if you look at these units as being horseshoe-shaped. Center galleys collecting water, rainwater, roof water, and that water will be piped, instead of being piped to the west, piped to the east to Bellarmine Pond, which then has an overflow, which is then piped furthermore to the east, away from Barlow Road and Round Hill Road, towards I-95 and ultimately the town water systems. We have with us here this evening Walt Jopes from Huntington Company, who's probably a little better adept at answering the more technical questions than I. But he did a study and looked at storm events and expressed the water flows in storm events. And what we're seeing is that in a 1-year to a 10-year storm event, you're looking at in excess of 70% reduction of water flowing into Winton Park. I think what's interesting when you start getting to the 25-year and 100-year, so those are bigger storms, more rainwater, the amount of diversion away from the Winton Park Association areas is 79%. So this is a significant improvement to the water problems in Winton Park. We presented this to our Winton Park neighbors, and it was particularly well received by many who were attempting to deal with the water issues impacting them. In our presentations to our neighbors, one of the other topics we talked about is parking. And what I'd like to do is hand out copies of this plan, Jen, because it makes it a little easier to see what I'm about to talk about.
Give me the stack. We'll pass it around. Thank you.
So again, to orient you, Round Hill Road is here, Bellarmine Hill is here, and this is the development of housing. And what this is aimed to address for you is how we've addressed parking, because we believe that parking would be a concern. We are seeking approval for 200 beds. As Attorney Fallon mentioned, these are juniors and seniors. Now, while we oftentimes present parking as a campus-wide issue, we are talking about how it impacts this area because in many respects it becomes a localized issue. You won't expect a student to park 1 mile to the north end of campus and be living in these units. We have a good precedent in the form of our townhouses, which is 460-bed development on the northeast corner of campus. We have 460 beds, and we know how many permits are issued to juniors and seniors. And the townhouses have established that we are issuing about 66% of the occupants of the townhouses with permits, meaning not every student is getting a permit for a car.
Right. Question.
Sure.
The 66% number, is that just the demand, or are you limiting the number of permits for parking that you're issuing?
That's the demand.
That's the demand. Do you have a cap on the number of parking permits that you issue for the university?
Not to my knowledge, no.
That's interesting.
But
so to your first point, when I went to college, I parked a mile away from my dorm. It might have been more than that, frankly.
I went to college in New Hampshire. We had nothing but space. For some reason, I had to park a mile away.
I went to in Rochester, which may be sort of, but yeah, it was more than a mile away, which is why I moved off campus, but that's another story.
And to a certain degree, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because
No.
we really don't want to make it convenient for students to get their cars.
Right. I mean, it turns into more of a commuter kind of,
Right.
But in any event, that's surprising, and I hadn't thought of that before. And only relying on my personal experience, there was a certain number of permits that would be issued in the year, and there was a lottery system. By the time you were a senior, you were entitled to one, but otherwise you put your name in the ring, and there were only a certain number of cars that were permitted to park on campus for students.
And of course, we have that capacity. We've never come to a situation where we've issued more permits than we can accommodate.
Right. That was my next question.
Right. I mean, generally, you get beyond 85%, 90%, you essentially have no parking, because, you know, you can't, if there's 100% parking, that means you have to drive around and find the one spot that's left for you, and that, for a practical matter, is...
Never interrupt this man, because he's so much better.
Mhm.
But I also think it's important, he was probably going to say next, freshmen and sophomores cannot have vehicles.
Right.
So that might explain why we don't have a, you know,
Yeah.
an abundance of, you know, lottery or a shortage of parking.
Yeah, good point.
And that wasn't always the case. In other words, we had allowed sophomores to have cars, and administratively, we solved that by saying no more. And that was based on what our peer institutions do. We, as John mentioned, we're always in competition. We can't be the outlier that necessarily, that if I'm a junior at Scranton, I can get a car, but I'm a junior at Fairfield, I can't. And it's pretty consistent amongst our peers. We, when we eliminated the parking, it was the end of the world for many freshmen rising to sophomores, and we received many, many phone calls from parents secretly thanking us for doing away with that. I mean, the goal is, you know, with Fairfield, the experience is to be on campus and not drive, so we don't make it particularly convenient. So, back to our development where we talk about 200 beds. You know, the question is how we addressed 66% of that, or 133 beds. We are proposing to do this with the creation of 117 new parking spaces. In the pages I handed out to you, we've highlighted the new lots in yellow. Those new lots that are highlighted in yellow account for 117 new parking spaces. One of the other things that we're doing, we've mentioned here that this is our barn and maintenance area. We are changing the way we do business. One of the users in this current barn area is ADM, which is our outsourced custodial contractor. We had 60 custodians that arrive and leave from campus every day, and of course that's 3 shifts. We believe the biggest shift is the day shift, at which ADM has 30 people coming to this barn area on a daily basis and parking. We have moved ADM elsewhere on campus and have distributed those 30 spots, which I'll call the peak for ADM, elsewhere on campus. We've also changed the way the facilities department, John mentioned that this is our barn area, we store equipment and stuff. We've reduced our equipment dramatically, but we've also had a reduction since 2012 of about 10 facilities people that had worked out of this barn area. Those are groundskeepers. We had an auto mechanic shop that was in this area that worked on equipment. We've eliminated that, sent it off campus. So all of that reduction is another 40 cars. So you're looking at 157 new spaces for 133 need. This does not capitalize in those lots that are not highlighted. Those lots account for another 160 spaces. It also does not account for the existing School of Business, which in July of 2019 will move to its new location. So, you know, we believe that we've adequately addressed parking. One of the things that from our meetings with our neighbors and conversations, and we've heard and take it quite seriously, is the overall look of this development and how it's going to appear close to a residential neighborhood. In particular, of note, this new parking lot to the south is a cause of concern. I will note on this that the southernmost boundary of this lot is across the street from our president's house. Same with the development, you know, issues of noise, issues of traffic, issues of disruptions. We have a president with his young family living across the street. We police all of our properties and all of our areas, but we believe that with the president across the street, we will have his attention in terms of keeping things in order and so forth and so on. But notably, that lot ends across the street from the president's house. As our architects will show you in a bit, our plan, if you recall, Barlow Field, which is to the south of this, At the request of one of our neighbors, we planted arborvitae along Barlow Road and up North Benson Road. Those arborvitae currently stop in about that area. Our proposed development, we would continue those arborvitae up alongside this parking lot to help conceal that lot. I understand, you know, to plant arborvitae correctly so that they don't kill each other off with their growth, you keep them spaced apart. Until they're fully developed and matured and filled out, sometimes that creates the ability to see through them, particularly if you're looking at them perpendicularly. One of the things we are going to propose is that in addition to this arborvitae, we put up a 4-foot-high wood fence that would directly block headlights. One of the concerns about why this lot would look industrial would be overall lighting, glare. Our barn area in particular has those very high sloped roofs with what I'll call glaring metal halide fixtures that light up the entire ground area for security and safety. Those would be eliminated in favor of our campus standard, which would be 12-foot-high Sternberg cutoff light fixtures. They're LED, they're a softer blue, but more significantly as cutoff fixtures, they direct the light downwards and eliminate this night sky illumination. I call it the Wizard of Oz effect, because in the evening you can see this glow above the area. We have, and I won't necessarily present it, but we have it here if you're interested in seeing it. In this lot in particular, a detailed photometric study that shows the cutoff fixtures that will illuminate the surfaces of the ground to the 1-foot candle standards, but not create a glare, not create the night sky illumination. And the photometric study will show you get a couple feet off of that parking lot and you're in darkness. At this point, I would like to offer...
A question, just for clarification.
Really?
What are the highlights showing us again?
The highlights are showing new parking lots.
The 30 spaces exists, and you're adding a lot to that, the one next to the 69.
The yellow highlighted should count to 117 new parking spaces.
Right, but the 30 space lot that's there now?
That's existing,
And this is going to be south of that?
south of that.
And this means the 117, is that the maximum that are going to be offered to the students residing here? Because
Well,
you said another number, that sounded
I think
higher.
that what you're going to find is that in addition to the highlighted yellow ones, you have those 30 spaces. You have the 82 spaces just to the east of that.
Right, I'm not concerned so much about you having enough potential parking as much as like, do all 200 kids need to be able to have a car? Because you start out, the argument that I hear first is getting kids off of beach houses, so there's not a lot of traffic going through town. And if that's the case, unless they're all doing like internships or something off campus, why do they need a car at all? You know, to speak to what you guys were talking about before, maybe I'm way older, because nobody I went to school with had a car on campus.
Well, I think one of the interesting statistics that we have shared with our Winton Park neighbors is that our number is about 89% for internships, particularly the junior. I'm sorry, that's Jen Anderson, our Vice President of Marketing.
Thank you.
So you're looking at about 89–90% of juniors and seniors doing internships. But, you know, obviously
Okay.
some Uber, some,
Right.
you know, share car rides with their friends. And, you know, we have the same 90% internship rate up at our junior, senior townhouses. I think what this also shows is, you know, I've talked about the convention of using 66%. I think there's more than adequate capacity if someone were to say, well, how do we know the 66% is right? There's additional capacity here in the event that number is artificially low, for example.
Do the students get a permit to park in any parking space that they might find in this parking lot or that parking lot or other? Or do they get assigned a permit to park in a particular lot?
It's not one per one. It's not that your permit allows you to park in this one individual spot. We do it by color coding the lots.
Well, yeah, not necessarily by spot, but by
Yeah, we do designate
lot area.
We do designated areas, so I think the students may be green, so they can park in green spots. Faculty and staff are blue, They actually have the right to park anywhere, including student spots, but students do not have the right to park in the faculty spots. And you'll see the blue spots, particularly near classroom buildings. And one of the benefits of that also is that if I'm a student with a green sticker living in this townhouse and I'm going to run to my car and drive to my class, there's a pretty good probability there won't be a spot waiting there for you. Again, part of our strategy to really discourage, you come to campus, you park your car, use it for your internships, use it for your clinicals if you're a nurse, use it to go home on Columbus Day weekend, and essentially discourage that traffic. We've actually found, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, students on the north end of campus on a particularly rainy, miserable day calling Uber to go to the other side of campus. And, you know...
Do you have a shuttle bus on campus?
We do have a shuttle bus, but... It's not Uber, and again, it also highlights why I guess every student doesn't feel the need to have a car, because the changes with Uber.
Other questions?
Just to drive home the
Commissioner
parking.
Noonan.
Thank you. So I gather all the spaces, whether highlighted or not on the sheet, are available to these townhouses.
Correct.
Okay. Are there other, because I think you mentioned this earlier, or I just missed it. Aside from the townhouses, are there other other schools or facilities that would use the parking spaces on this sheet, whether
Yes, I
highlighted
will-
or not?
If you look at this, that building there is our early learning center. Most of the people in that building are restricted to tricycles. We have about 10 in staff that will come and park. And again, they're not coming and going, they're coming there, parking, working, leaving at night. We also have the Pepsico Theater, which is an educational facility. I believe they put about 4 productions a year on. And again, their draw would be at night. And the front building, which is the old white farmhouse, is the Coslow Center for Family and Marriage Counseling. And
But you don't find, for example, that the 82 spaces is used by a school to the north that's not on here?
no.
Okay.
No,
These spaces then are going to be primarily used, if not predominantly used, by what we see in this map?
Correct.
Thank you.
Or just, that's a big isn't this a rather large, like, student center or something across the park, across from that?
That's
82
the
space?
former Dolan School of Business.
Oh, that's the old place.
And of course, that also has parking surrounding it, and that use is moving to its new facility in July of 2019.
And that building will be renovated into something else, or you don't know?
We don't know yet,
Okay.
and that's one of the reasons why we don't
So you have
try
an
and
excess
count
of
that
200,
parking.
you have an excess of 200 spots as shown on this map.
Right.
Yes, not, yeah.
David, for some context, I want to respect. How many parking spaces do we have on the entire campus? I know you know the curve. Just over 3,000.
Okay, you're going to need to take the podium and introduce yourself if you're going to
I'm
answer
sorry.
questions for the record.
For the record, that's Kurt Krasinski, who is the Director of Capital Planning and Design for Fairfield
Okay?
University.
So in the future, we're going to keep this orderly. We're not going to announce things from the audience. And if you have something to say or a question to be asked, please take the podium and do it properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
One question.
Yes, Commissioner
Will-
Francis.
Will you be installing pump stations to get the water up to the pond and up to the higher levels to go to I-95?
No, the entire system will be gravity.
Is it? Wow.
Right, Walter? Gravity fed. And we've obviously done the analysis and,
Yeah, okay.
and it works.
Any other questions? Yes.
Does any of these 3 new proposed buildings have a cafeteria?
No. It's worth noting, the proposed development are single beds. There is no clubhouse, no social gathering, no space like that.
community room.
That we believe happens up on campus.
Mhm. Very good.
This is the student's room, and it's only one person.
Correct.
That's unusual, isn't it? And usually you have a suite of 4 and a bathroom or 2.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this based on what we're hearing from the students.
Wow.
And, as John noted, a lot of this is to attract students back from the beach, and we believe that we have to offer something a little bit more attractive. That's why we're going with all single rooms. I will tell you, this is based on a development we saw up at Trinity College. The rooms are small, but we're finding they're popular and they work. Imagine this is a townhouse type development though, where it's not really a dormitory. It's really like a condo, so that you come and walk in your own front door or in your living space. That's why we didn't feel the need to have large common areas, because the kids are going to hang out with each other in their living room, in their kitchen, which is within their units, which will have at most 8 single beds per unit.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll let the architect
Yep.
give you a better description of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me introduce, thank you, David, very much. I have Bob Costello as a principal at the UIP Architects, and he'll discuss with you the architectural design, what we were trying to achieve, certainly by way of emphasis of a residential perspective.
Thanks.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about this facility. And I'll just add a few words to David's last comments. Our office has been doing a lot of residential housing for universities across the country over the past several years. And we see this type of living arrangement becoming very popular among students. And colleges and universities are building it to become and keep competitive with other facilities. I'm going to talk off of the drawings that were distributed previously. I'm going to start first with the floor plans and then work into the exterior elevations. And then when I get to those 2 boards, we're going to distribute a 3-dimensional rendering that we completed since the last meeting. The construction is going to be comprised of 3 buildings being comprised of 28 individual townhouse dwelling units. The dwelling units are 1, 2, and 3 stories in height. Typically 8 residents per unit. The ADA units, which are on the first floor, house 4 residents, for a total of 200 residents in this complex. The buildings are 3 stories in height, R2 occupancy, 5B construction, fully screened. Buildings A and C, which are the 2 longer buildings, are 39 feet 6 inches in height, and building B, which is the shorter one, is 37 feet in height. What I'd like to do is just talk about the floor plans a little bit. Starting on the first floor, I'm going to call what we have bookends on each of the buildings. This is actually building A. Building B is a duplicate of this building, and building C is actually just a smaller footprint, minus 2 units. The bookends to each of the buildings are comprised of an ADA unit on the first floor, which has an entrance on the end elevation of the building, and it is topped by a 2-story unit above it. The typical units through the center are 3-story units with the living room, kitchen, laundry areas on the first floor, and the upper 2 floors are bedrooms, 4 bedrooms on each of the second and third floors. The second floor plan shows the bedroom layout. Again, 4 bedrooms on the second floor for each unit, and then 4 on the third floor. The units also have individual mechanical and utility rooms, small laundry areas, and the 3-story units in the center have access to both the front and back side of the building. Each unit has its own entrance by means of a covered porch, and we'll see that when we get to the exterior elevations. But you can see those porches lining up down across the front of the buildings, and then for the ADA units, the porches are on the ends. Again, on the upper portion of the sheet is the second floor plan showing additional bedrooms. And then on sheet 103, it shows the third floor, which is very similar to the second, again with bedrooms occupying those levels. And the top portion of that sheet encompasses our roof plan. With that, what I'd like to do is get into the plan for the facilities building before I move to the elevations.
Just a quick question. You said they each have their own mechanical?
Yes.
So where are like the condensing units and stuff, where will they be for?
They will be lined up on the courtyard side of the building. Basically, there are actually these boxes right here. This is the front of the building facing the campus.
Okay.
Condensing units are on the back side.
So when you're in that court, you're seeing all the condensing units there? They're not out
Correct.
in the public view?
Correct, they're not in public view.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any mechanicals on the roof?
No.
Okay.
Moving to the plan for the facility building, it's primarily a one-story structure with a basement level that's exposed on one end of the building. On the main level,
Taking it
has
right
an
now, are we?
entrance
That's what we're doing.
from a parking area on the rear side.
Doesn't matter, you know,
It
it's my
comprises
office here.
a small carpentry shop, some offices, locksmith area, locker and changing rooms for the staff, as well as a large break area. The
That's
lower
what I
level consists of two parking bays.
If you don't mind, you wanted me to call these separately. Is he doing the third?
The townhouse application subsumes both the townhouses and the maintenance facility. That's part of the application that you're hearing right now.
Okay, so,
The second and third are different.
they're different. So there is a component that, so I just had some questions
The
here.
third utilities thing is a different utilities.
That's a 1600.
Oh, I misunderstood.
addition to it. Sorry.
Got it.
That's all right.
Very good.
Yes, so this application is two components.
Got it. Forgive the interruption. Thank you. Please continue.
The lower level has a service area for two vehicles where they can be pulled in, protected from the weather, and also minor repairs done on them, and they're flanked by a mechanical and storage area. And you'll see when we get to the elevations that we try to encompass the same type of geometry and appearance from the townhouses onto this building. This building totals approximately 6,000 square feet. It will also be 5B construction, and it will be fully sprinklered. It's a mixed occupancy of both business, F1, which is the carpentry shop, and S2 storage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I'd like to jump to the elevations quickly.
Yep.
This is the front elevation of one of the buildings of the townhouses. It's very residential in appearance and in scale. The roof lines were created to help reduce the appearance of the size of the building, and I think that works quite well. You can see the gables over each of the porches, where the entrances to each of the individual units is located. This is actually part of the building with the main porches across the front. This is the back side with gables also over the secondary entrances to the three-story units. And you can see where the condensing units are lined up.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Moving quickly to the end elevation, this would be the elevation we'd see as you drive into the campus. It's a series series of roof lines which help minimize the size of the building and one of the porches for the ADA units. The elevations for the facility building pick up the same type of flavor from the townhouses. Steep roof, clapboard siding, and actually clapboard and shingle siding made out of fiber cement board. With that, I'd like to go to a couple of images that are new to the package, and if Kurt could help me pass these out. This is a Google image of the campus site, locating the three buildings. And the arrow A indicates a vantage point for a rendering that we have just created. This is a rendering of the exterior of the townhouses. The exterior materials are fiber cement board in both clapboard and shingle style siding, a dark roof material to help ground the building. The windows have dark frames to help pop out against the siding. The building will be white to blend in with the neighborhood buildings. The front doors are seen as an accent, and that would be a red door for each of the dwelling units. And this clearly shows the porches that delineate the entrances to each of the dwelling units. Again, very residential in scale, residential in appearance. Color would be white and grays to match the adjacent houses in the neighborhood.
Yes, I'm curious as to why, or if you gave any thought to building B being at the other end, facing into the campus, like the way the lawn at UVA does, where this is so reminiscent of that, that it might solve some issues with blocking noise and whatever else from the neighborhood adjacent. Maybe there's a topographical issue there, I think.
It was that, and we were also trying to, it was a matter of how the services were being brought into each of the buildings. We wanted to do all that distribution within the courtyard and keep all the condensing units within that enclosed space. There is a drive that goes around the back side of Building C, and we wanted that to be the front side of that block.
I guess what I'm getting at is taking this and flipping it. And it just might be curiosity more than anything, but, you know, if this were the view on the neighborhood looking into the campus, that would block neighbors having to see into that and hear things, and if it's maybe it's like I said, my first gut reaction, not really being able to read the topo would be maybe there's a major change.
There is a major change in gradient through here. We were trying to keep, I believe, the parking for this building near this parking area also, because this parking is related to these buildings in the facility, whereas the parking for the townhouses is back in this area.
I don't want to interrupt you.
Not at all.
You showed me earlier, I thought we were
That's not what he just said. He said that the parking's here, not here.
From around the road. One of the things we were trying to do too was keep the density more centralized to the campus. But we did, in listening to our neighbors, analyze the campus, the views that this facility as presently proposed would have. So I'm going to let Bob just walk you through that. We've got that for you as well.
Are you saying the views from the buildings toward the exterior,
No,
toward the neighbors?
He'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
We've got copies of these.
We got
Okay.
copies of these coming around.
Do you have a few extras?
If I do, people are welcome to.
Why don't you take this as well?
Why don't we just make sure that...
Put this on the table. John, right here, sorry for me. That's extra. Put that on the table, they can take that.
Buildings are not moved, they're not getting on this.
No, those are staying.
Here,
That's the second one.
it's another extra, the first one.
This one. We haven't gotten this one yet.
We have extras, just that.
Oh,
Not yet, it's coming.
Not No, it's got more arrows.
There's only one. We stop here. Oh, he's got it. Sure.
All right, I got it. Very good.
Shows you more
Excellent.
context.
So here are some extras which you can pass out there. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
President's
This is the second handout.
Is that the present?
I guess so.
Oh, I thought you had it over here. No, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay, let's, everybody pay attention now?
Yeah, sure.
Working off that same Google image, this was the arrow A that I just referred to a moment ago, we got the two buildings here. What we did was we went to one house, just to one side of the president's house, and took some views.
Could you, I'm sorry, could you just point out which one is the president's?
This is the president's house here.
Right there? Okay.
And we just went to the next house to select some views.
Thank you.
Based on photographs. Photograph 1 shows that the existing trees and arborvitae hide the existing buildings on the campus. Photograph 2 shows...
Photograph, I'm sorry, can you just go back for one moment, because I was trying to orient myself. Actually, go back one more,
Start at the beginning.
because what confused me was the brown square, or rectangle. That's not the new parking lot.
No, it's a...
The new parking lot is going to be in between the arrow with the A
Yes,
and the brown spot, right?
correct.
So, when you referred earlier to the president's house being across the street from this new 69 space lot, that 69 space lot is going to be right across the street from what you just identified as president's house. Yes, right there. Okay, very good, thank you. So picture 1.
Picture 1, which is right here on the site plan.
All right, so what we see here in picture 1 is looking towards that area that I just talked about where there will be a parking lot.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Corcoran.
So you said that we were looking at the existing arborvitae, but we would look at the aerial photograph, there are none there.
That's because of the date of the Google image. It hasn't been updated on Google in some time.
Gotcha. Okay. This is a current picture.
Photographs are current, yes.
Do the arborvitae currently run all the way to the driveway? Or do they? No. But you've talked about doing that. Yeah. Right, right, okay.
Okay.
And your fence.
Oh, I see, you can see the opening kind of, yeah, I got you.
All right. Number 2.
Photograph 2 is from a slightly different position. And you begin to see a portion of the existing maintenance facility.
That's what's coming down.
Correct.
Where? So, all right. So on the top one, on the top image, as I'm looking at photograph number 2, this way, what are those white? What are those roofs on here?
It's underneath that. You can see it.
You can see all the way through there.
Or the dorms than the carriage
That's
park.
going to be the next photograph.
Yeah, I think that's where it is. Can you show us on the Google map where those rooftops are?
Yeah, in picture number 2, yeah, where the,
Back in the
yeah, you
Well,
were,
look at B. Go to your next picture, because I think that's gonna, right? B shows the proposed. Proposed, that gives you an idea of what it would look like
This is
now.
what we had our renderer do. He basically goes in and takes the elevations
Right.
on a Google map and places our building such that it's in the context.
So we're seeing the gable end of the handicap units for building A,
Correct.
on the southwest corner of building A.
that's why he's on here. He figured that out.
But this is newly planted arborvitae that should gain some height.
Correct.
Right now, they don't look like they're doing a whole lot of screening,
Okay.
but, that's understood.
Yeah, right.
If you look at one, they look like they do.
Yeah.
The barn seems much,
A little bit higher,
Yep, okay.
because you can see a little bit more of the roof.
Com- Commissioner Corcoran.
so they appear to be much closer in the photograph than they do on the aerial photograph.
Just in terms of your perspective, they look like they're more embedded into the campus on the aerial. And then when you have the perspective of the street view and the current photograph, I think your remark is that it seems much closer to the street than you would have thought.
Right.
Yeah.
What you're seeing is the end of this building.
John Allen, for the record, can you, how far is it from, in terms of, can you scale, or anybody on the team scale how far the building as proposed, at least the point of the building that is documented in photo B, how far is that from the property line, the
Yeah.
street?
Because there's going to be, and I'm sorry to interrupt your question, there's going to be a parking lot in between the person's perspective here and that building in picture B.
Right, and because I think it's important that we understand, since we're dealing here in perspectives,
Yeah.
the actual square footage.
Yep,
So, Mr. Jones, I saw him rising to the occasion.
yep.
I'm getting over 500 feet. I'm
Yeah,
getting something like 500
I don't want to
feet.
say it, but that's what I'm getting at.
Bless you.
The corner of the parking lot.
But you try to, where are they?
Go ahead and take off.
Commissioner DiGiacomo, you have a question? Okay. All right.
Mr. Jones is scaling that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Come forward, identify yourself for the record, and tell us, Mr. Jones, that you can, having just scaled it, how many feet are there from the property line to that point of the proposed building that is depicted in photograph B, as noted on the Google map?
From this
Just say your name. It's Mr. Jobs for the record.
Excuse me. For the record, Walter Jokes, professional engineer and land surveyor, employed by the Huntington Company here in Fairfield.
Thank you.
From building A to the property line, which perpendicular, should be the closest distance to the street, about 250 feet.
Okay. And from the edge of building A, right there, yes, to the perspective of photograph B.
Where's A and B?
B. Okay.
I'm going to return to my office and
Okay, Commissioner Corcoran.
So, does this purport to be what the neighbors will see?
Yes.
Well, what about the houses that are much closer, that are across from, I mean, you're taking a house that's down the block. What about the houses that are up by that car?
On Winton Road.
Round Hill.
Because I'm looking on my, Google Maps, and I see two houses that are much closer, right across from right here.
On the other side.
That's our,
Probably on Winton.
No,
Road.
I'm not looking at that house.
Probably on Winton, corner.
I'm looking, you go up to Winton Road, and then there are two houses. You can just see Winton Road on there.
can you mark them out there? They show it.
Yeah, see Winton. there.
Yeah, I can see them.
Under those trees.
They're just off the map.
Where would that be?
You want me to come up?
Right here?
No.
Yeah, there and across. across the street.
Yeah, on the corner of
Across
Winton Road, on
both
the northern
corners.
corner.
David Frassinelli. This house on this corner
Yeah.
is the, owned by the daughter's charity possibly.
Okay.
And what you're gonna find is the next house up, there's significant grade changes here
Yes.
that would block views.
Okay.
We have not taken a perspective per se from there.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
hard to see in aerial, but this is a substantial rise.
Who is
the crest of the hill to the north of the development.
Okay.
Again, for the record, Walt Phillips.
Yeah.
The distance from, again, Building A, in this perspective to the street line's about 430, 450.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
like that.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Anything else? Any questions?
Any other questions for Bob?
Just one. Are
Mr.
the
Francis.
children in the neighborhood losing the sledding hill? No.
No.
Okay. That will make them happy.
The sledding hill is pretty much in this area.
Okay. Thank you.
In case you were curious, this is a dated photograph. The reason why this looks like this is because it was during the installation of the Barlow Field.
Yeah, now it's kudos, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Lastly, in our presentation,
Yeah.
we asked Michael Galante and Frederick P. Clark to do a traffic evaluation for us. He submitted that,
Yeah.
but I'd like Michael to come forward tonight and summarize his findings and answer any questions.
That'd be good. We do have the report, so I would ask Mr. Galante to give us the highlights.
Good evening, Mike Galante, Frederick Clark Associates, located here in town. I'm just going to spend 2 minutes giving a summary of our letter dated October 3rd, 2018, which is really an evaluation of traffic impacts, or lack of impact in this case, of putting 200 beds on the campus in a townhouse-style development. Our experience with this university and other universities is that as you take students off of, or in this case, off the beach, or out of apartments or houses throughout the area, throughout the town, and maybe beyond the town, and put them on the campus, we're reducing traffic because that student is driving back and forth all day long. And I can say that because my son did that, living at home, just off the snap, actually, over here. He went back and forth for 4 years, multiple times a day. And my daughter-in-law did the same thing from a different house in town. So by putting the students on the campus, it's truly reducing that traffic, not just during peak hours in the morning going to classes, but in between classes during the day. So that is why we just really left this to a traffic evaluation. But I can assure you, from past experience, we have all the traffic data for the university and its driveways on Round Hill, Barlow, North Benson Road. And just one point, the Barlow Road entrance drive was improved in the last several months, this past year. One, to improve sight lines because the stone walls were in the way, and two, to add an exit lane to make it a 2-lane exit. Because that driveway, if you look at the volumes, is really the driveway that's being used for traffic in the morning and the afternoons, as opposed to Brown Hill Road, for example. Also, certain driveways are gated, closed at night to control where students go in and out, and anyone else. So that's all part of the program to kind of control what's going on in and out of the campus from different driveways, and certainly to control what's going through the campus as others may use it. So in essence, what this letter simply says is that by putting 200 beds on the campus, we anticipate reducing the traffic in and out of the campus on a daily basis, not during just peak hours, but throughout the day. And that's just a very quick summary. You've heard a lot tonight about the purpose and the benefits of putting the beds on the campus. And I can certainly answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Noonan.
Yes, sir.
I think you just said you had a son that was nearby, you
Lived at home with us.
drove
Married.
or walked?
Oh, no, he drove.
He drove,
It's like a 3-minute drive. I mean, he could have walked.
okay.
He wanted to stay at home for graduation because but we drove there.
No, because I mean, I get the idea that you put people on campus, you're taking traffic off.
Yes.
I'm just curious if there was any consideration or any data behind that some students live near enough to walk. And how that plays into...
Some may, but I'm not sure of any that live on Round Hill or North Benson.
I'm
for
just asking,
example.
I don't know enough about the
No,
area,
it's
but
a good point, but I
within a
don't...
mile, I mean, my first instinct would be to walk, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that everybody else.
Well, bicycle, for example.
Bicycle's another good
More
example, too.
attractive, actually. But as far as walking, you know, we've done traffic counts over the years. We don't really have a lot of pedestrian counts to show that pattern, but we certainly have the traffic volumes by driveway during different time periods of the day. And we've done these counts over a period of time, over many years. We've been consultants to the town, to the school since 1984. So we've kind of been tracking patterns and been involved with lots of changes on the campus over the years.
Are there bike racks in the building?
Are there bike racks? I believe there are. Yeah.
Good.
Certainly an important step.
Can I ask a question?
No, when the applicant finishes their presentation, we'll have an opportunity for public comment, and then you can address all your questions.
We do keep track of like the off-campus, where most of this are not really within walking distance, I mean, the beach area.
Beach area.
Well, obviously the beach area not, but within a
Yeah,
mile of the
and
school.
the vast majority of the students that we expect to be utilizing this new facility are present.
Can I ask a hypothetical? So let's say if this were an apartment complex, you didn't have the access you have through the main entry, like Cogden Road ended there, what kind of percentage, I don't know what I'm trying to get at, like, so we have 117 potential cars going in and out of Cogden Road right onto Round Hill Road. Like, is there a way to think about how they're spread out over the course of the day? Do you have I mean, if you're talking about, you said before that maybe this will take some of the pressure off the Barlow entry? I think I heard you say.
No, I think
Something like that.
the beds on campus in general is taking pressure off the surrounding roads around the campus itself. But as far as where the students may be living or going to classes within the campus, that varies by what classroom building they go to, what dormitory they may live in. So it's pretty hard to give you, well, we think it's going to reduce by 5%, for example.
My gut tells me I see 117 new cars there.
Wow.
They're going in and out that gate.
Yep.
That's the number they told us
Oh,
117
well,
spaces. So that's the number that's sticking in my head.
But keep in mind,
Yeah, could be 200, sure.
That's
Let's
my-
go with 200. Could be 200.
That's my
yeah,
point.
but
Yeah.
The parking spaces is not what's generating the traffic. Not everyone leaves at the same time during the day. It's really the lane use that's related to the parking. But these parking spaces, we're assuming if they live on campus, that car is sitting there most of the day. I'm not saying no one's going to go get the car and go into town, but the whole idea is they have a place to park that car.
These beds are dedicated to students who will otherwise be living off campus. And that's our whole premise here, that they're day in, day in, out, coming for class and leaving, like 4 o'clock class and back and forth.
Or in evenings.
They won't be doing that now if they are on campus.
Although potentially these are juniors and senior beds who are going to be going to internships. So they'll be, they may be joining the peak hour traffic as far as.
Yeah, and not just internships, but there's no internal road here for them to go into the campus, right? So in order if a student wanted to drive,
Yeah, they can go right here, Cogden, go uphill, they can go right up here.
Oh, yeah.
they can go internally, they don't
Yeah,
have to
go
go out on Round
no,
Hill
no.
Road and then go into another one?
There
Okay.
are many roads internally. Yes.
They have, from where we are talking about, take a drive.
Do you have a number?
Because they have alternatives in terms of whether they want to go up and down past where the Quick Center is and back of the library, or they want to go out and up the hill towards Bellarmine and down past the Canisius, and, there's
Multiple
all
choices.
sorts of multiple opportunities for them to access internally the campus, probably more conveniently and more expeditiously than if they went off the campus.
I have a question too that's probably not for Mr. Galante, but maybe to answer it. Do you have a number on how many students live in the beach area that you're talking about reducing? 574, and you're potentially taking 200 people away from there?
No, but I mean, if we're gonna get data from somebody,
Okay,
then.
sure, you're right,
I mean,
sorry.
Jen Anderson, I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Fairfield. So any given year, we have anywhere between 550 to 600 students living off campus.
Thanks,
I
and
meant
so,
specifically the beach area though, because that's what we hear.
Majority are living in the beach area.
okay.
Yes.
So I have a question with respect to that. So what is the total enrollment of the school today?
Total enrollment, undergraduate or graduate or combined.
Well, I mean, this is
Roughly.
undergraduate housing,
This is undergraduate, about 3,800.
3,800. And so with the additional 200 beds, is there a plan to increase the enrollment of the school?
Undergraduate enrollment?
Undergraduate enrollment,
One,
no. We're
please, one.
specifically looking at about 1,000 students per class for undergraduate enrollment. But that fluctuates because you have students that just leave their freshman year, transition out, or study abroad.
Right, so I guess ultimately, and I think this came frankly for me at a different place in the presentation than I anticipated, but you're the right person to ask. So, I mean, I think that a concern is that while being presented as a mechanism for bringing students from the beach area onto campus, that there will be an expansion in the enrollment of the school such that those kids will either still be at the beach, or you'll take them from the beach and bring them on campus, and then there'll be more spots available, and there'll still be the, you know, the presence in the numbers that we see down in the beach area. I'm asking her.
So one of the things that we're doing with the existing dorms is renovating them and taking some beds offline to accommodate more group-style living. So even with the new dorms that we've created, they have larger common rooms, areas where they can congregate. So when we do the renovations, we're taking some beds offline to create these common spaces. So that's one thing that's happening.
Right.
Second is we do want to reduce the population at the beach, not just to help with relations down there, but also risk factor. So we get another Sandy and those homes get destroyed. We need capacity to bring those students back online.
Right. So is there any school policy that commands a certain number of students living on campus versus off campus and the like?
No.
No. Okay. And the enrollment number is 3,800. Is that governed by any sort of cap for certificate of occupancy? No, it's not. So it's just internal fluctuations in policy. All right. And so is there a current plan to cap the enrollment at any point?
No.
Thank you.
The only thing I wanted to add to that.
Please do.
And this is something that those who've been on the commission for some time, you know, the university and this commission have had a strong and constructive relationship. And I've said to you many, many times, and I think it's been proven out, the success of Fairfield University, and you've probably read about some of its recent success and the status that it achieved in the most recent national rankings and whatnot, is based upon a premise that I've told you for 20 years is consistent. And that is, we do not want to expand dramatically in any way our undergraduate enrollment. We are what we are, and we have become what we've become because of the focus of our educational opportunity based upon the number of graduates that we very consistently maintained over the last few decades. And the best evidence that there is no diabolical plan to expand the university. Other universities have different philosophies about growth, some locally and some nationally. Ours is to maintain what we have so that we can offer the kind of quality that we are continuously being more and more recognized for. And we've said that to you for 15 or 20 years, and we've been consistent in that regard. The other thing that we said when it was a much bigger issue, and we've addressed, is you know, the beach issue. And we've been favorably impressed there because, frankly, we find that if you build the type of on-campus housing that we're talking about here for students, they find that on a lot of levels to be oftentimes preferable to the beach. Because if it's all said and done as a matter of cost and ambiance and lifestyle, it's a better result.
I don't think there's anyone that would argue with you, and that for the 99% of students, if they had the opportunity to live on campus, they would do so.
Right.
The issue presents itself where the university offers admission to more students than they can house on campus, and then tell them they have to fend for themselves and go find a place to rent or live in the surrounding neighborhoods. So I don't disagree with anything you've said. The problem that has persisted and grown as a result of the students needing a place to stay.
That is a bigger problem maybe at other campuses, but the way we've addressed this, we think with your help over the last decade, that has not been a problem for us. And indeed, we've been commended by our Fairfield Beach neighbors for the efforts that we've successfully made to bring students back to the campus. And we don't have issues of that kind, mainly because we continue to be committed to maintaining attractive, quality student residence housing on campus, and this is another focal point of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't really have, subject to an opportunity to respond to any questions or comments by the public and a brief rebuttal, I think I'll stop here and look forward to addressing you one last time after public comment.
Does anyone else have any questions of Mr. Fallon before he... Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Commissioner Meyer.
Does this development, is this designed to bring students from the beach to live here?
It's designed to provide more attractive on-campus options for juniors and seniors that we hope and expect, based upon our more recent experience of the last few years, they'll avail themselves of.
Is there a requirement that underclassmen live on campus?
There is. Freshmen and sophomores, I'll let Mr. Frasnelli or...
Thank you.
There is.
Thank you.
So freshmen, sophomores, and juniors have to live on campus. The only students we give the option to, and I just wanted to make the point to you before, we do guarantee housing. So for any 4 years, we guarantee housing, but in order to be competitive, when students reach their senior year, a lot of them do like the independent living. So this gives them a style of independent living on campus, but we do give them the option to move off campus if they prefer. Sometimes these kids are doing 3 days of an internship. They like to move closer to that. They like to have the experience of living off campus. So in order to be competitive with our peer institutions, we have to do that.
Right.
But we are unique in the sense that we do guarantee housing for 4 years.
That's
Many of our
important.
peers don't do that.
I appreciate you coming back with that. That's important. And I want to ask you another question about that. But are you finished?
Good.
Okay. Commissioner?
Just what you just said. So juniors are currently required to live on campus.
That's correct. The only students we
So who are the
off
juniors
campus.
that you're attracting with this? This is called a townhouse-style junior housing. Is that not meant for?
It's junior and senior housing. So our freshmen and sophomores have to live in your traditional dormitory experience. Once you get to junior year, you can select to live in our townhouse-style units. And then once you get to senior year, you can live in the townhouse-style units and/or move off campus. But you have to apply to move off campus, and we need to release you off campus. So that is not a given that you will be allowed off campus.
So, to that end, does the university plan to reduce the number of students that they are going to release to live off campus if this proposal is approved?
Yes,
By what? What are those numbers?
approximately 100,
100,
at least in year one.
at least in year one. Okay. Is there some broader plan?
Beyond that, we've committed to 100, and we are going to evaluate at that point and then see where that takes us.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell me about this?
University contributed $1.4 billion of economic value in the state of Connecticut.
Oh, you don't have to
years
go
ago.
there. We're all very familiar.
I can give you the numbers for small businesses too that we support.
And congratulations on being recognized.
Thank you. We were #1 in the North, which is a huge
I
accomplishment.
saw that.
First time
And
ever.
to Mr. Fallon's point earlier, that was recognition for the undergraduate program.
That's correct.
All right, as a regional university.
Yes.
And you deserve a lot of credit for that.
Thank you.
So that's very nice. We, however, are faced with the daunting task of evaluating a proposal for 200 new townhouses across the street from a residential neighborhood with 500 kids that live in the beach area and lots of people that live and work here with their families. But I do appreciate your comments.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Fallon or anyone else before we go to public comment? All right, thanks. So we're going to go to public comment. Please feel free to come up and introduce yourself. You have the floor. Address all your questions and comments to the commission, and you can speak for as long as you like, so long as it's germane.
I didn't really talk that long. I think
No?
the Yankee game's just about over. My name is Neil Edelson. I'm representing at the moment the Fairfield Beach Peninsula Association.
Okay, excellent.
My
Thank
personal
you.
opinion aside, because I actually don't mind the students living down at the beach. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I think when you said 500 down by the beach now.
Oh, and that's
No,
a
it's
number that
my guess is that there's 575 people living off campus, the majority of them are living down by the beach, so that would be reduced, and knowing there's 474 if you limit it by 100.
Yeah.
So I guess from our perspective, you know, we thought, and I guess still think, that the commitment is to reduce the number of people living down by the beach, and that the housing is not necessarily for expansion, because there was a lot of conversation about the housing.
I'm sorry, please address your comments to us. That's the way we do things here, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks.
Try to do it the way you want.
I appreciate that.
Because it was our understanding that, and there were a lot of rumors that we heard that the campus was going to be expanding. That Fairfield U was trying to expand their student base. But I guess from what I heard tonight, if that's the commitment, they're not going to expand, then that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't necessarily agree with you that if you are a senior and you're offered on-campus housing, that you'd rather live on campus than off campus.
Oh, yeah, and you know, to be fair, I was trying to understand the nature of the rules and regulations on Fairfield U, not knowing whether or not they guarantee the housing, but you have to apply and they release you, so they actually control the numbers of students that are on or off, right?
I guess so. I don't know how that control works, but my guess is that if you're a senior and you haven't done anything necessarily really bad, you probably get released. That's just my assumption, but I could be wrong. I guess I would ask though what the cost is to live in those new townhouses versus renting a house down by the beach. If it's
I'm sure that the applicant has done some, at least back of the napkin math on the competitive nature of their on-campus offerings versus, you know, living off campus, and hopefully
it would have to be a lot less expensive.
They'll address
for
that.
people who want to take advantage of it.
I mean, you know, the other side of it is that if the university has housing on campus that goes unused, then that's a detriment to them. Then that's stuff that they've got to pay for that they're not recouping cost on. So I think that probably factors into that as well. So the organization that you're representing is which now?
Fairfield Beach Peninsula.
Fairfield Beach Peninsula. Very good. And you know about how many people are involved?
That's a good question. I'm only there a couple of years, but how many people?
In the association?
Yeah.
No, in the association, or how many houses we represent.
Oh, well.
Because from Reef Road to the end.
Yeah. You want to come up to the microphone? Are you with the association as well?
I'm both.
Great. Come on up.
Part and the association. Okay. I'm a little conflicted because my name's Mary Ann Rosito, and I own 2 properties on the beach in the peninsula. And I also own a property on Winton Park on 700 Uncle Road. So, well, as far as the beach goes, in the peninsula group, one of their main concerns is the students who are living on the road, and that often in many of the houses, there are many more students than should be living there, because there's only supposed to be 4. But the traffic and the cars and the speeding and just the partying and everything is a problem. So that is a big concern. So they were very interested in what was going to be happening here, to hear whether there was going to be some relief. I'm not sure from what I've heard that there'll be any substantial relief. I'm also concerned about traffic on Winton and Barlow. Because I also have the same issue you do.
Thanks,
I'm
yeah.
cold. So, I can see that they will maybe stay on campus, but maybe they'll go downtown. Maybe they'll want to visit their friends at the beach. There's potentially 200 cars there. And how will they go? Well, what's the easiest way to go downtown? Well, they'll probably either decide to go on that little road, this Whitten Road, that goes and leads out to the high school, and then take a left and go down Umpqua. There'll be more traffic down there in the middle of the town. Also, there's high school kids using those roads, and now we have college kids and Barlow. To me, it seems like there's going to be I know that the traffic reports may suggest otherwise, but we know a lot of times traffic reports don't actually indicate what happens when we build and build and build. So those are the concerns.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Do you have anything else to add? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next, yes.
Hi, my name's Susan Pinzon. I live at 555 Round Hill Road. As a matter of fact, my house is the one on all of these maps that was in the little yellow square, and they took it, those images, down the road. That is my driveway, the south side of my property. So the corner of the north side of my property will almost be kitty-corner diagonally directly to the parking lot of Fairfield U. The president is my next door neighbor. First, I just want to put on the record that I wasn't given notice at all from the town on this, about this at all. I was just heard it through neighbors. I was given notice though for the Dolan School, so don't know why that is. Would have liked some time to talk to people and, been able to prepare for it. My other concern is when you put, screening is going to be very difficult in that area. And I'll tell you that since, we had the tornado come through my property not too long ago. Prior to that, I'd been there 13 years. Up until that tornado a month ago, I lost 19 trees in my front yard, and that is due to that sodium chloride they put on the roads now for the snow. So when it rains, all that stuff comes down the hill and absorbs into the ground and has been killing the trees. This was verified to me by the town tree warden. I believe his name is Jeff Minder. And so he was telling me this is why these trees won't grow anymore down here. And I've lost all these trees. So it's going to be very difficult for me to put screening up to block all of this, especially the parking lot, which is going to be diagonally across the street. And so for me, the scale of this whole project is big. That's 200 students directly across the street from me, a parking lot. It's becoming a commercialized zone. They've already made an AstroTurf field directly across the street from me. They've put in 2 containers, like I guess that you'd see cargo ship containers. They put across the street and put asphalt driveway up to them on the, I guess, what would it be, the top of like across the street on the, across the park, the AstroTurf field. So these things I looked out the window a week ago and I saw this new container out there. So these are relatively new things. They are industrializing the area. It's becoming less and less residential. And frankly, yes, I'm concerned about the quality of life for the neighbors, myself, and my property value there. And I know my husband has some points he'd like to bring up too.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
I think she took a little bit of my thunder. I'm Marco Pinzon. As my wife Sue mentioned, I live at 555 Round Hill, which is squared off in one of the diagrams, or many of the diagrams. One comment that came out that I was a little concerned about, I think one of you mentioned that you wanted to see a different photo, one that showed a perspective from the house that wasn't down the street. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were referring to this house here as being down the street. This house, and this is why I think a lot of this is misleading, because I look at it and I say, wow, it doesn't look right to me. Well, first of all, this is a very old photo, as we know, right? Because there's a turf field there. But to really get a perspective on this entire project, in my mind, you need to do a field trip. You need to actually go there and go to the corner where this corner and look straight up 40 feet in the air and then look across the street and you will see my house. And then you walk across and you go through the parking lot that's being proposed, this very long stretch of asphalt that's going to go across Round Hill, that's going to go up to an easement that separates my property from the president's property. You will see my house. It's, without question, it is right there. So this is, I just wanted to clarify, this is not down the road. This is right there. I am directly impacted by everything that's happening here. This is a very, very, this in my mind is a very, very large commercial and industrial development project. This is a very large parking lot that's being put across from us. I'm having a tough time trying to figure out how this is not going to impair the character of the neighborhood. I'm having a difficult time trying to figure out how this is not going to impair property value. I've already spoken to at least one broker, and we've walked the site and walked my property, and I asked him, what do you think? And this broker said, without question, your property value is going to be impaired. Without question, before they break ground, your property value is going to be impaired. As a matter of fact, to some degree, if I were to if we were having a conversation about buying my house, and we decided on a price one day, and the very next day you learned about this application, the very next day you would come back and say, Marco, I'm sorry, I just heard about this project. The price that I was offered is now going to be reduced by X. 20%, 30%, 5%, whatever the number is, it's reasonable to assume it's going to be a reduction. So what I'm seeing here is, and don't get me wrong, I'm pro-university. I'm very pro-Fairfield. But what I'm seeing here seems to be something that is beyond the scope of what I think is fair for that neighborhood. I think if you look at it, it's really going to be imposing. Go over there, stand and do the field trip, take a look around. I think there can be a compromise here. I'm not saying let's just deny this thing outright. I kind of get it. I certainly do not, I can't see, I've got to think there's an alternative to this parking lot. It is going to be a huge parking lot. That is an industrialization of that immediate area. I look out my window all the time if I'm watching football out in my family room. And I see a lot of families playing there on the grass, a lot of residents really like that area. And that's something that the university is giving back to the community, and they're going to take it away. Now, they have a right to take it away if you approve it. But I am saying that's something positive that the university is doing for the community, and that's going to be gone. It's a little troubling. I think there's certainly, I would argue, there's certainly going to be an increase, or a increase in frequency and severity of noise pollution. I can't imagine there's not going to be. You're going to be putting 200 students right across the street from me. There's going to be an increase in light pollution. How can it not be? You have to light up this large parking lot. You have to light up the surrounding area of the new dorms or the new apartment. You know, it's just going, again, it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. And that really concerns me. And I think it concerns a lot of my neighbors. I think you see a lot of us looking here and trying to figure out really what is going on here. And I think there should really be some type of really win-win situation, some type of real compromise, something that says, okay, the university really cares about the community. The university really cares about the neighborhood. I'd like to see that. I'd like for them to say, you know what, our neighbors are ticked off here. Our neighbors work really hard, and this is an important asset to them, and you are going to impair that value. And they can argue that that value is not going to be impaired, but I'm telling you, if you go there, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, there's a couple other things I want to kind of touch on. The one thing was about growth, and I was really kind of like confused about this whole thing on growth, and this is something that I'm really concerned about. Last Tuesday, a week ago from today, I spoke with the new university president. I spoke with Mark Nemec. And I asked Mark point blank, I said, Mark, why are you building this? Why are you doing this now? And Mark's response to me, point blank, and I might have the words jumbled, but it's pretty close, if not exact. Growth. We are growing. That is what Mark told me. Growth. We are growing. The numbers that and the facts back it up. Look at the fact book. They have their 2017-2018 fact book. Look at their enrollment. Their enrollment for a long period of time is kind of flatlined like this, moves around. It's a hockey stick now. You know what a hockey stick chart is? It goes like this, and then it's unprecedented, uninterrupted annual growth. They're now at about 3,800 students.
if you look at their, it's called the Fairfield 2020 Initiative. If you look at the Fairfield 2020 Initiative, and I have it here, they tell you their goal is 4,000 students. They're telling us today that 4,000 undergraduate students. They're telling us today it's 3,800. They're capping it there. Something's missing here. Mark Nemec told me it's all about growth. If you look at the initiative was put together because they realized their whole business plan is in jeopardy. Well, part of it, the way that, let me back up. A big part of the revenue piece of their business model is in jeopardy because you can no longer push for year-over-year increases in tuition by students. There's just pushback by consumers. You're only going to pay so much. If you have a college-age student or a child, like I do, you realize you're paying a lot of money annually. So they realize they can't push that through anymore. So they did a 17-month study, and they came up with this 2020 initiative. And the first bullet point there, it says growth. Growth in revenue. Growth in diversify that revenue stream. You know how they're partly diversifying that revenue stream? They're putting 2 new profit centers right across the street from me. They're putting an apartment complex, and they're putting the parking lot. Again, I'm for the university, but I think something's got to be done here. I think there's got to be a better solution here. I think that parking lot idea is, I do have a serious problem with that. I think the apartment complex, I think it could be scaled down a little bit and pushed towards the new Dolan building. The new there's a parking lot there. There's that space there. You can push it there. You can be creative. You don't have to coddle the students. You don't have to give the students a parking lot that's 5 feet away from them. We've got enough health problems out here. They can walk, right? They can walk. I've walked out. When I heard the comment before about taking an Uber, the thoughts in my mind were not positive. I didn't think I didn't think that reflected positive on the students. I don't think they meant it that way, but it just didn't reflect positive. That's it. Those are my comments.
I appreciate that. You mentioned you have the 2020 Vision Fairfield plan.
Yeah.
Can you submit that to the clerk?
Oh, I only have a couple pages, but I can email it to you guys if you like.
It's online.
Pardon?
No, I know.
It's online. Yeah.
But thank you. Mr. Fallon just offered to submit the 2020.
I can certainly
Yes.
get you the pages
No,
that I'm
you don't
speaking
need,
of.
sir.
Right here.
You don't need to.
Okay.
Mr. Fallon is just, as for the applicant,
Okay.
has offered to submit it through staff so that it'll be a part of the public record. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Fallon. You're next. You'll be next.
Thank you, Commission. Kyle Hublitz, I live at 761 Round Hill Road, which is just up the hill by grade from the entrance that we're looking at here. And there were some questions by the Commission when we were looking at the Google Maps, and I'm the house that is elevated a little bit, that will be looking downward somewhat. Currently, I very easily, directly in front of me and down a little bit, is the Pepsico Theater, which is highlighted on the maps. And I can see the roof lines of the barn maintenance buildings right now. I think I'll be seeing a lot more of the new proposed structures from my sightline. And I can see the small 30-space parking lot very clearly. I'm sure I'll be seeing an additional 117 parking lot. That's a main concern to me. That's equivalent when you look at the proposal plan. That's equivalent to a parking lot the size of a football field, right smack down there. That's not something that I'm looking forward to having in my sightline and adjacent to my neighborhood. The scope and size of these new buildings, what I haven't heard, but when I look at the site plan provided, that appears to be an additional square footage. And I understand there's a takeaway of some of these existing maintenance buildings and then the new build. I believe that's a net addition of some 58,700 square feet. That's a sizable add to this corner of the property, corner of the campus. And the measurements are I think, did I hear roughly 250 feet from the property line. So that is that's a major infringement upon our neighborhood feeling. At some point, what has been undecided is the current, call it the old Dolan School of Business, and what that will be repurposed for. There's a lot of parking around that right now that could easily accommodate the students living in this proposed new building. So I don't see a need for the additional 117 parking spaces, when there's already a lot of parking spaces right up there by the old Dolan School of Business. I commend the university. I'm a fan of the university, and I'm pleased that they are getting nationally recognized for the quality education and the quality experience that they deliver. I think that's the benefit of the entire town. I do worry about continued growth. I hear and respect the comments that they have a commitment for no new undergraduate growth. I believe they're targeting graduate growth. That's still growth in terms of the total population and total traffic flow in and out of the campus from any which direction you're targeting traffic. The part of their plan, part of this Master 2020 plan, they've executed very, very well. The new Dolan School of Business is a huge improvement. The new nursing school is a huge improvement. There is already a new dorm on campus that opened up this summer for some, I believe it's 200 beds. And the new parking garage in the center of campus is a huge improvement. I don't know what the capacity of that garage is, and I don't know if that's being used to capacity at this point. But I have been told, and it makes a lot of common sense, that within their Master 2020 plan, they want to rebuild and redo Alumni Hall, the basketball stadium. And they have documented plans of a stadium seating up to 4,500 people for basketball and any other sporting events. That's going to create a lot of traffic, for sure. And that parking garage is I believe, intended to accommodate parking for 4,500 seat stadium. All that is an improved campus experience, but it's a lot of growth and a lot of traffic. I don't think we need to add more in this southwest quiet corner of the campus. In the 1980s, the university built a townhouse, as they call it, complex in the northeast corner of the campus, exact opposite corner, diagonal corner of the 200-acre campus. And I think history has shown that there's been neighborhood issues, sound issues, and traffic issues incorporated in that corner. We have a nice quiet corner to some degree in the southwest. I don't think we need to duplicate issues and problems that they've already experienced. Those are my concerns. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Charles Abercrombie. I live at 251 Penfield Road, and I'm president of the Fairfield Beach Residents Association. For 20 years, I've been involved with student and beach issues. I'm also a member of the Beach Advisory Group, which is a planning and policy group that's comprised of the first selectman, the chief of police, two community representatives, Ms. Anderson, and the dean of students, Karen Donahue. So in those meetings and in many meetings that have occurred involving beach and student relations, I wanted to give you some information about what is going on there in terms of numbers and the impact of this development.
Thank you. So you're here then speaking on behalf of both the Fairfield Beach Residents Association as well as the Beach Advisory Group?
No, I'm not on here on behalf of the Beach Advisory Group. I'm simply saying I'm a member of that small group
Okay.
that has regular meetings about beach issues.
All right.
And I think shares more data than perhaps in the general neighborhood.
Okay.
I'm here on behalf of the Fairfield Beach Residents Association, and I trust you received a letter
Yes.
from us in support of the project, and I won't repeat anything that I said
Appreciate
in
that.
the letter.
Yep.
But what I do want to is talk about some of the numbers and things that were thrown around today in terms of the students.
Yes, please.
The information that we have and which has been articulated in the various meetings is that there are approximately 550 students who live at the beach. The university has pledged repeatedly, both in meetings and in these beach advisory group sessions, that it is their intention with this project to reduce the beach population by 100, to bring it to 450 on an annual basis. Now, I take them at their word because that representation has been made repeatedly and has been made very specifically, and has been made in the presence of the chief of police and the first selectman, and I would take them at their word for it.
It was made here tonight.
And it was made here again tonight. So, the real issue is that the beach has been for many, many years under enormous strain because of the student rental population. This, along with many other initiatives that are being worked on and have been introduced this year and over the years, is designed to reduce that strain. But the reality is that the only way you're going to ultimately reduce a lot of the strain is to reduce the population. At least that's my personal view. And it's the view of our board as well, having discussed it. And this project, I'm not going to get into the particulars of whether the university's done enough to accommodate the neighborhood, because that's ultimately your decision. But I do endorse the notion that moving students off the beach and onto the campus is a good thing. And that the idea of people who will no longer have to drive, you're not going to stop people from driving completely, but you're going to stop them from driving back and forth to the beach, at least 100 of them in the initial phases. And I think that's a value to the town overall.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you for your comments.
Can I ask this person a question? Or I know we don't normally, we don't normally do this, but just so you can understand the number, you said 500. Do you have a sense of how many houses we're talking about?
I think there's, I have the number.
I did the math, that's 137.
I know, please, please,
I don't know.
please.
I know there's 500.
I've asked a number of times for us not to be doing
Houses are
this.
limited to 4 to...
And I do this twice a month.
4 or 5 residents per, depending on which side of the street you're on or where in the beach area. Occupancy is limited to 4 or 5 people. So
It could be 100 houses.
100 to 150 houses.
Thank you.
Some houses are overpopulated. That's another big issue that we hope to ameliorate by a new housing on the campus.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Good evening, thanks for your patience. For the record, my name's Jay Fain. I'm wearing a few different hats here today. I live at 8 Elm Street, which is on the corner of North Benson and Elm. I also own property on Winton Road, which is right behind the university president's house, and most of the drainage from this proposed development in this part of Fairfield University actually goes through my property and then across the Barlow Road. I'm also the principal and owner of J. Fain and Associates, which is an environmental consulting service, which we do environmental consulting and land use planning. I'm here though as a private resident here tonight. I share the concerns of my neighbors, but my specific concern is the parking lot adjacent to Round Hill Road. Just reading from your regulations, section 28 for off-street parking and loading. It is the purpose of these regulations to foster parking designs that accomplish the following goals: improve the quality of the streetscape, increase the tree canopy, increase permeability to mitigate storm runoff, and improve pedestrian and vehicle circulation. Going deeper into your regulations, there's some regulations or language regarding construction of your parking lots and the requirement for a low impact design, which by the way this is not commenting on that, but it does also go on to say that all off-street parking and loading space shall maintain a minimum of 10 feet from any street line. The minimum setback or area for parking and loading shall be suitably landscaped and permanently maintained for no other purpose. Then the commission may adjust the aforesaid requirement to particular circumstances of lot lines, topography, soil conditions, and site conditions while preserving the purpose and intent of these parking regulations.
What regulations?
This is section 28 of your zoning regulations.
Right, which subsection? I found 28.10 for construction.
Yeah, 28.10. And then 28.11.3 regarding shade trees, it says at least one tree for every 10 spaces shall be provided equally distributed throughout the parking area. If I look at this parking plan as a professional, I think it's fundamentally flawed. If you were to get in your car and come in from Copeland Road, drive down to the parking area, come into any of these stalls, you're going to find out that you're going to get stuck in each one of these stalls. You can't, if they're all occupied, the only way to come out is to back out all the way out, all the way back to here, in this particular area. All these particular areas are flawed in terms of the overall design of the parking area. That's number one. Number two, I don't believe there's adequate screening from the road itself. You also have to consider the trees themselves are going to have an area that they need to grow, and that there's going to be snow load in this area, and that isn't adequately taken care of. So I think the separation distance between the parking lot and the property line should be increased. Also, the trees here are provided, they're showing a 15-foot spacing. We estimate the existing spacing for the current arborvitae is about 8 feet. So these trees are not close enough together to provide an opaque screen. We're also having deciduous trees as part of that screening area, which would also serve to allow transparency through the parking area itself. So there's a number of flaws, I believe, in the design of the parking lot itself. You don't have any of the shade trees distributed throughout the parking area, around the perimeter. The area of asphalt itself has no parking islands or landscaping, so it's unattractive in that sense. Lighting itself is not shown on this plan, so I'm not quite sure how it's being proposed or where it's going to be proposed, but if you're going to have the shorter 12-foot fixtures, it should be distributed throughout the parking lot itself. Again, I would prefer not to see the parking lot in this location, but if it was going to be in this location, I think the screening should be adequate. I think the neighbors deserve that. I think it should be an opaque screen, possibly double the number of arborvitae, layer 2 deep, that would provide a lot more. I think it should be moved away. There should be room for along the perimeter for snow. The snow is going to have to be plowed in the way that this parking lot is designed. You have to go into here and here, along this area here. And I think that concludes my comments at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm not opposed to the development itself. I do think that good planning would not have this parking lot here. If you drive around the university itself, I think they've done a very good job of having everything insular and having good screening. I think this is the one flaw in their overall master plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, sir. Oh, actually, that's a good question. Thank you. Is that one of the maps from the application, or is that your own personal map?
It's one of the maps from the application I printed out on my printer and brought here tonight. I'd be
Excellent.
happy to leave it as an exhibit if you like it.
If you could just identify which page it is from the set, by the number, sheet number.
Page C4, site plan parking lot expansion.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'll be quick, I know it's getting late. My name is Bill Malone. I live on 80 Winton Road, and Mr. Corcoran touched on it earlier today about the house where the sisters live. I live in the house next to where the sisters own that house. And when you stand where my front door is, I look down into the president's backyard. My front door is even with the top of the house. if nobody's familiar with the topography of Winton Road, those first few houses are elevated. They're up pretty high. My house is elevated, the house next to me is elevated, the one in back is elevated as well. Years ago, when they put the priest residence in, we were told we're not going to be able to see that. We can see it. When I look out and I look at the barns, I see the barns, I see those bright lights lit up. When the leaves leave the trees in the fall and in the wintertime, I see that field, I see the goalposts, I see everything. And that's because the house is elevated. So those arborvitaes, they're not going to block out that parking lot. Not for my house, not for the sisters, not for Kyle. You know, we're all going to see that parking lot. And my biggest issue is, even if you think, well, you only see part of the parking lot, or you're still going to have those 12-foot lights that are going to be shining. Maybe they're shining the light down, but you're going to see them. And, you know, everybody wants an ocean view, everybody wants a mountain view. Nobody's asking for a parking lot view. I've never seen that before. And it's certainly not going to be on a real estate listing. So, you know, I just want to make those comments. Everybody knows, and anybody is welcome to walk up my front lawn, stand there and take a look.
Thank you.
And you'll be able to see it. 80 Winton Road.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Brenda Catugno. I'm at 305 Barlow Road. So I look at things a little bit differently because the front yard is my field. And I know that there's that tiny parking lot there currently. And with the plans of expansion, one of my concerns is the unintended consequence of more and larger events going on at the field. Because sometimes what happens on weekends is there are tournaments from 8 a.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. at night, Friday or Saturday and Sunday. And with an 8 a.m. start, that means the teams are out there at 7 a.m. warming up, getting ready for their games. So to me, a larger parking lot, when it's not in use by the students, means that the university, as they can rent out the field to larger events, longer events, you know, further disrupting our peace during the weekends. So it's an unintended consequence, but it's something that certainly affects our standard of living. So that was one thing I wanted to say. I find that is, again, commercializing our residential neighborhood. The other thing I'd be interested in seeing, because I didn't see it before when the gentleman was going through these photos, I'd like to see the roof line again over the hill, because that's what I would be looking at as well from my front yard. And then, you know, the traffic report said that it didn't really affect adding, that this addition, the 200 beds and the students, would not necessarily affect our neighborhood. It would be nice to have some traffic diverted, but I just can't imagine how that wouldn't happen. There'd be more cars in the neighborhood. The traffic study was conducted on Tuesdays, March 1st and February 23rd, and that's just based from the report that I saw. And my question is it possible that they were done during a time when school was on break? There's a lot of traffic that goes on in that area, and I just can't imagine that it wouldn't affect having 200 more people in the area, wouldn't affect it. So that's all I needed to say, just unintended consequences.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else? Members of the public? Yes, sir. Come on up. No.
I'm Mike McKenna. I live at 758 Uncle Road, which is way opposite of this. I am far less affected than any of my Winton Park neighbors. I came here sort of last minute, came out of work, got home a little earlier, because I hadn't heard about it. I don't know who they reached out to, I don't know, I think they might have come to one of the Linton Park meetings, but I don't know if they used registered mail or FedEx or hand delivery or walked around and knocked on doors, but I didn't know this project was coming, and I tend to read about this stuff because I'm in commercial real estate. And I wasn't going to really say a lot because I think it's been touched on, but because I have a little background in it, when I started to hear certain things in the beginning, I was like getting ready to laugh. I moved from Brooklyn. If you have a car, you're going to use a car. If you have a parking spot, you're going to use that parking spot. If it's blue today and it's green tomorrow, and another group gets to change who gets what, you could have 300 spots there. I don't know if they're going to use the stuff from the Dolan Center. I don't know why they don't push it back. You know, it's 200 residents. It's 200 20-year-olds. I feel for the beach people. I've heard about that for years, heard about it before I moved up here. But we're basically going to take some of those problems and put them up on North Benson Road, which is extremely quiet. I walk my dog there pretty much every night. You know, I don't know, I think the university had an issue with a big pile of dirt on the north end. You know, there's issues. You know, it can't be the first one. Listen, I feel for the beach people. I don't think for a second the university is doing this because, oh, they want to make sure people have the option. You know, he was right. It's a line item. You make money on dorms. Now, maybe someday they'll tell the seniors you can't get off. Maybe the seniors will fight. You know, maybe in the houses on the beach that they're supposed to only have 4 students, they don't account for the boyfriends and girlfriends. Because I know, you know, college kids don't have those, right? So in these townhouses, it's just going to be the students. You know, there'll be. You were asking about condensers. Why was that? Noise?
I can't answer.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll address that, but no, we appreciate your question as to why we would be inquiring. I mean, I think it's fairly self-evident, and it's probably rhetorical, so you shouldn't be demanding any answer.
No, I'm not demanding,
But,
I'm
yeah.
asking. You asking for noise or visual?
All of the above.
Okay.
We have to look at everything from different angles.
Are there decks or porches? Are they exposed?
Yeah. You can please ask
Okay,
the
I'll go
questions.
back to you guys.
And
I'm gonna
the applicant will
assume
deal
porches
with
or
that.
decks are exposed.
Yeah.
So if you've got 4 or 8 people in a suite, you've got an open space where, you know, I know kids don't drink beer anymore or make a lot of noise. I accept that they can do that. I just think you gotta look realistically at what's gonna happen. This thing is dumping right out into Winton. Winton is a very quiet little block. You know, when I'm walking the dog at night, I gotta worry about some high school kids occasionally, that's it. This will become a thoroughfare. If you have your car, you're gonna use your car. It's not, I go to school so I don't go out. You know, this is not NYU. It's not like you walk outside and go down the block or out the subway. There'll be Ubers coming by too, right? Because not everyone has a car, or if I leave my car because I want to go out and go drinking or doing whatever, I'll take the Uber. So you're going to get a lot. It's a multiplier. It's not 200 spots. I don't know. I was a little, you know, it's a university, and you got a Google photo from a year ago. You got 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You've got angles showing houses. If you did do this rendering at a zoning board in New York City, you know, those are contentious. I don't know how you guys do this once a month, but you'd be thrown out. It just doesn't, you know, it doesn't fly. Listen, they have the right to do it, they have the right to do it. You're going to change this section. You know, I think that's all I want to say.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm starting to lose my voice, if I haven't lost it already. Yeah. So, we usually don't let people speak twice. I mean, I don't know what you could say that hasn't been addressed.
Just a very, very brief follow-up. Okay. Just on the traffic report, the main finding, the principal finding about it being an improvement for traffic is based on experience. What exactly does that mean? If you guys can look into that, because there's no real hard data behind that. Not that I see in the report, there's no real hard facts behind that. Just on a comment that Attorney Fallon mentioned, he emphasized that everything is across the street from the president's house. Look, that is true, but also the president has a different interest. He has a different mandate. It's a different, he's not a private.
We understand.
No, I just want to make sure. And then the final piece is that, just to confirm, when you go through the report, you will see it addresses the 4,000 undergraduates. That's it.
Right. Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Matt Brotman, I'm at 374 Barlow Road, which is actually the corner of Barlow and Round Hill Road. So I was listening a lot today. I'm very supportive of the university and what they're trying to accomplish. I'm not so worried about the growth part of it. I think whatever is good for the university is good for the town. However, some of the comments that were made, my house is right by the stop sign. There's no doubt that there's going to be more traffic in front of the house.
Stop sign at the corner of Round Hill and Barlow?
That's right.
Mhm.
So I just, back to some of the comments from my neighbors, I think that there's more of a compromise and there needs to be a little bit more due diligence with including the neighbors, and I think that would go a long way. That's about all I really wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Okay. Well, we concluded that part right at our curfew. You can sum up in 10.
It's good for you. It really is. It's good for you when everything comes together. Without respect.
If you'd like to conclude, I'll give you 5 minutes. If you want, if not 5 minutes, then I'm adjourning because I've had it. I've got members of the commission here who are ready to walk out. I have a clerk
I don't want to make...
who's given moaning and groaning. Every time I do this, John, I hear about it. I hear about it.
The only thing I'm going to say, and then I can probably do it in 5 minutes. I don't want to be unfair to the applicant.
I don't want you to either.
Huh? But then your hearing's going to be open. You're going to have all these people coming back.
No, that's not necessarily the case. This is the way the process works, and this is what I tell them as much as I tell it to you too. You're entitled to...
I can wrap it up with, and then you have a closed hearing, but that's okay. I don't want to press it. I respect the chair's discretion. I'm just trying to help
We have
everybody.
here the baseball field anyway, so
Yeah.
baseball betting.
I'm ready.
You go home.
Yes.
Then I will see you on the 23rd.
Okay. So, with that, we'll close the public hearing aspect, adjourn the meeting for the applicant's rebuttal next session, and I'll close the hearing.